The wind off the Blackwater carried the briny perfume of the sea, and the faintest sulphurous tang of the alchemist's hidden fires as Lord Eddard Stark guided his gelding along the cobbled quay. Gray pools of twilight gathered between the warehouses, and the lanterns that bobbed on the masts of trading cogs shivered on the black river like scattered gold coins. Ned had left the Red Keep by a salgate, seldom used, and rode cloaked in rough-spun, the direwolf sigil concealed beneath a plain wool surcoat. Even in exile within the walls of his enemy's city, he moved with the same measured purpose that had steadied Winterfell for 15 years. But his eyes, gray as storm ice, were restless tonight. They watched, wary and silent, as dockside shadows whispered of secrets and broken oaths. Somewhere above the thick smell of tar and fish, the bells of the great sept tolled the hour of the evening prayer. And the thought of Catelyn's candles in the Godswood, 1,000 leagues north, tightened his throat. 7 hells, he swore inwardly. I should have ridden for home the moment Robert breathed his last. Yet duty, that iron promise he had forged with his own honor, bound him here. Jory Castle's blood had barely dried upon the stones of Littlefinger's brothel before Tywin Lannister's hosts began their long march, crimson and gold banners flaring like embers across the riverlands. The hand seal had passed to him by royal decree, but power in King's Landing lay in cold hands. Cersei's smile stiff as sugar icing, Littlefinger's mocking eyes, Varys' silken whispers, Renly's bright chivalry masking quiet dread. And Jaime? Sir Jaime, Golden Knight, Kingslayer, sat his great charger beneath the Red Keep's windows, shining and cruel, as if daring Ned to reach for the steel at his hip. Ned would have challenged him then, and there had Sansa's wide, frightened eyes not caught him by the heart, had Arya's small cold hand not clung to his. So he answered only with silence, and turned his wrath inward, shaping it into something colder, something ruthlessly patient. On the quay ahead, a cloaked figure raised a gloved hand in signal. A lantern guttered beneath his hood, briefly illuminating a long pale face blotched by pox scars. Halling of the Alchemists' Guild? The pyromancer bowed so low his skull nearly touched the dirty planks. My Lord Stark, he hissed, voice thin as a reed. You honor us with your presence. Enough, Ned muttered. He dismounted, boots clicking on damp stone, and fixed Halline with a look that sent many a Lord Bannerman quailing back home. Show me. Halline's grin gleamed green in the lantern's sickly glow. This way, my lord. He led through a low doorway crusted in verdigris. The tunnel beyond reeked of smoke and volatile oils. They descended stone steps, slick with river spume, the air growing warmer with each turn. Ned felt sweat trickle beneath his collar even as dread pricked his skin. In the cavernous vault at tunnel's end, Wildfire slumbered in racks of glass jars, hundreds, perhaps thousands, nestled like eggs in straw.eggs. Thin veins of phosphor glimmered along the seams, pulsing faintly as if with trapped hearts. Ned had heard tales enough. Wildfire that burned beneath water, that ate flesh to the bone, that clung to steel and stone alike. He had spoken to veterans of the defiance of Duskendale, who still bore scars etched by green flame 20 years past. And yet here it sat, mute and waiting, a monstrous power no northern lord had been meant to wield. Halline whispered of purity, of secrets passed from generation to generation. Ned scarcely heard. His mind churned through hosts. 30,000 Lannister men arrayed beneath crimson banners, in the fields west of Blackwater Bay, armored columns snaking down the Rose-Red, siege engines lumbering toward the city walls. The gold cloaks numbered barely half that, and their loyalty hung by a thread of coin. Stannis remained on Dragonstone nursing grievances. Renley dressed knights in sunlight and prophecy, but commanded only gilded promises. Ned's own guards could form but a shield wall for his children. Yet Wildfire, this cursed alchemical abomination, could break the spears of 1,000 men as easily as summer hail smashed a barley field. The image rose unbidden, walls of emerald flame ripping through Lannister ranks, turning gilt lions to shrieking silhouettes. And somewhere in that fiery tumult, Jaime Lannister scorched and blinded, screaming over the roar, the handsome face twisted to match the ruin in his soul. Ned closed his eyes. It was revenge he tasted on his tongue, warm and coppery. Revenge for Jory, for the butchered Northmen, for Bran pushed from a tower window. He felt its heat, as tangible as the ovens that cooked Winterfell's bread. Justice, he corrected himself sternly. But the words sounded brittle. How many jars can be readied? He asked at last. 500, murmured Halling, smoothing gloved hands across a nearby cask. Perhaps more if his grace invests anew. 500 will suffice. The words left him hollow. Gods forgive me. Departing the vault, Ned found the river breeze almost cool despite the summer night. Halling spoke of transport, of hoisting rigs and hidden wagons. Ned listened with half an ear, gaze sweeping the dark water. Each ripple glimmered faint with starlight. Somewhere downriver floated the corpses of men whose fates he had sealed tonight, though their hearts beat still. Moonlight silvered the roof slates of the Tower of the Hand when Ned returned. Maester Pycelle awaited within his solar, all flowing white beard and ponderous false humility. Cinnamon smoke curled from the brazier in an attempt to sweeten his fouler odors. The old man shuffled forward, bearing a parchment broken with the royal seal. A raven from Casterly Rock, Lord Stark. Tywin's words were terse, red wax flecking the vellum like dried blood. He demanded the immediate release of Tyrion Lannister, compensation for the wrongful capture of a lord of the realm, and safe conduct for Cersei and her children to return west, should King's Landing prove inhospitable. Ned crushed the letter in his fist. Across the chamber, ice lay in its scabbard upon the table, too large for any hand but his own, its Valyrian steel rippling with dark light. He felt the old sword's weight even from here, as if it called for justice of a cleaner sort. But honor's straight path was barred by treachery on every side. If he sent Cersei away, Robert's children, bastards though he believed them, would ride with her, and the Seven Kingdoms would wake to war. If he kept her, Tywin would come with fire. Either way, the Riverlands would bleed. And, in the north, winter crept ever closer. He dismissed Pycelle with courtesy etched in ice, and moved to the window. Beyond the ramparts, black sky swallowed the city. Somewhere in its labyrinth of streets, his daughters dreamt of a father who could keep them safe. Somewhere beyond, a lion host made campfires like scattered constellations across the reach. He whispered into the night, so softly even he scarcely heard. "Forgive me, Lyanna." Dawn found the practice yard awash in gold. Sir Barristan Selmy sparred with the Queen's own guard, white cloak billowing like a gull's wing. Ned watched from the shadow of the gatehouse. Steel rang in bright counterpoint to the chorus of gulls. Jaime lounged against a pillar nearby, hair gleaming, a casual observer, yet every inch a predator at rest. When Sir Barristan disarmed his young foe with a flourish, Jaime clapped lightly. His smug smile narrowed as he noticed Ned. "Lord Stark," he called, voice dripping insolence. "Care to test your northern steel against mine this morn?" Ned's answer was a long gaze, level and cool. He pictured the Kingslayer's armor blooming with green fire, sigil melting. His laughter turned to flesh-peeling screams. Time slowed. Honor's code and his new resolve clashed like swords behind his ribs. Then he inclined his head curtly and walked on, boots crunching gravel. If Jaime read his eyes, and Jaime read eyes as deftly as a maester read parchment, he saw something he had not expected. Later, Ned heard the Kingslayer had returned to his chambers early, restless, unable to settle. 2 nights later, Ned summoned Lord Renley to the solar. Candlelight flickered across the younger Baratheon's handsome features, casting doubt in luminous browns and crimsons. He listened in silence as Ned spoke of bastardy, of bloodlines, of a queen's lies. When Ned had finished, Renley leaned back, drumming fingers on the armrest. "What you suggest," he said finally, "would topple a kingdom. It may save it." Renly's laugh was soft, astonished. "By naming Stannis?" He shook his head. "Even if every man in Westeros bowed to your proof, a dour stag upon the throne burns no brighter than a guttering candle. The small folk will howl, the great lords will squabble. You trade one war for another?" Ned folded his hands on the table. "We stand upon a precipice, Lord Renly, Your brother hovers between life and death. When he passes, Cersei will move swiftly. She has already placed her own men throughout the city watch. If we act not at once, the Iron Throne will pass to a child of incest. Then war is certain." Renly's eyes reflected the flame. Green as the wildfire Ned had consigned to his soul. "What of another way? Suppose we place someone beloved upon that throne. Someone who can draw swords and hearts alike." Ned caught the unspoken ambition. "Your elder brother is rightful heir." "Rightful," Renly echoed, weighing the word. "Us were Balon Greyjoy's forebears once. The realm chooses strength, stark, not dusty parchments." He leaned forward, voice velvet soft. "With your name, your northern swords, and my charm, we could enthrone the boy I name, Tommen perhaps, or even myself, should the lords demand a man grown." Ned stood. "I will not usurp the throne to feed another man's vanity." At that, Renly's expression hardened. Candlelight drew sharp planes across his cheekbones. "Then, you will lose everything. Perhaps. Yet I will lose it clean." He turned away, signaling the audience at an end. Footsteps retreated. The door closed with a click like a sword in its sheath. Ned's hands trembled. He pressed them flat against the table until the tremor stilled. The wildfire plan coiled within him like a caged wolf, snarling against the bars. He prayed to the old gods that he would never loose it. Yet his prayers seemed to drift like seeds on the wind, falling nowhere. Arya found him in the godswood. She had crept past Septus and guards alike, bare feet silent on the damp soil. Ned sat beneath the red-key-leaved heart tree, transplanted from the wolfswood generations past, its bleached face carved with weeping eyes. Small candles guttered among the roots. "Your Grace," Arya said in a playful whisper, curtsying. She wore breeches and a torn doublet, a wooden practice sword slung at her hip. "Or is it still father today?" He opened his eyes. "Always father, little one?" She nestled beside him, head on his shoulder. He smelled the smoke of torchlit corridors in her hair, the tang of sweat from her secret drills. "They say a war is coming," she said. "Who says?" "Squires, kitchen girls, even Septa Mordain mutters." Arya traced lines in the moss with a twig. "Sansa prays every night for knights in shining armor. She thinks her prince will save us." Ned felt the ache of love and sorrow entwined. "Knights are flesh and blood, Arya. They die as easily as common men. Not you." She looked up, fierce with childish certainty. "You're Ned Stark. You have ice in your veins." He smiled, though it twisted in pain. "Go practice your needlework." Arya rolled her eyes. "Sewing or swordplay?" "Both. The realm needs all the skill you can master." He hesitated. "Stay close to the keep. Promise me." She scowled but nodded. He kissed her brow. As she darted off, nimble as a cat, Ned turned back to the heart tree. Blood-red leaves whispered overhead. He closed his eyes and prayed for the strength to do what honor could not, and for forgiveness when that day came. The ravens brought word on a sweltering afternoon. Tywin's vanguard had crossed the Mander, taking Bitterbridge by storm. Small folk fled before the crimson wave, stories of rapes and butcheries clinging to their tongues. Lord Tyrell, sour with humiliation, barricaded Highgarden, and wrote letters heavy with green florid threats. In the throne room, Cersei's smile bloomed bright like a poisonous flower. Jaime stood at her side, hand resting on the pommel of his ornate longsword, as if daring anyone to note the closeness of queen and brother. Robert lay in his bedchamber, skin sallow, lips cracked. The hunting boar had gored him deep. Maester Pycelle leeched him with cups, and fed him milk of the poppy, but each day the king slipped farther from the world. Ned sat vigil, clutching parchment Robert had scrawled in a shaky hand. A royal decree naming him regent and protector of the realm. He had altered one line, replacing "my son Joffrey" with "my rightful heir," intending to seat Stannis. His honor insisted on truth. Yet as he watched Robert's chest rise and fall in shallow gasps, he wondered if the truth could survive the fire about to fall. Plans unfurled like frost across glass. Halley's wagons would depart the Guildhall before dawn, rattling down the Rose Red under cloaks of pitch-black canvas. Pyromancers in gray robes would walk beside them. murmuring prayers to the stranger. The wildfire would be carted south of the city, ostensibly to clear a section of the King's Wood infested with brigands. In truth, Ned intended a different destination. The rolling meadows east of the Blackwater, where scouts reported Jaime meant to assemble his siege train. There, in hidden pits masked by fresh-cut sod, they would bury the jars, dragon's eggs in a stolen nursery. When the Lannister host encamped, a single fiery arrow would hatch them all. It was madness, surely. To cast such fire so near the city risked catastrophe. Winds could shift, embers leap. Innocents would burn. Yet the alternative was worse. The sack of King's Landing, the Red Keep aflame, Sansa and Arya dragged before Joffrey to beg mercy. He had to believe a controlled blaze now might spare forests later. Still, each time he glimpsed a copper-haired child chasing pigeons in the keep's yard, his heart clenched. The boy's small hands, the girl's skipping feet. How many such children camped with their fathers beneath a lion banner? War did not spare innocence. Wildfire certainly would not. He felt ancient. All at once, in the pre-dawn black, Ned stood upon the ramparts of the King's Gate and watched 5 shadowy wagons rumble toward the Roserat. The torches affixed to their frames burned a peculiar ghostly green, Hallin's idea of protective wards. Ned shuddered despite the mugginess. Beside him, Jory's cousin Tamard, a brawny man with a broken nose, shifted uneasily. That stuff. It's not natural, my lord. No. Ned's voice was a rasp in his throat. It is not. He laid a hand on Tamard's shoulder. See that no one interferes with them. And keep your distance. Mahos. Tamard saluted, grim as winter. The wagons creaked southward, swallowed by gloom. Ned remained until their lanterns dwindled to sparks, then to nothing. At midday, Robert died. The news swept the city like wildfire itself, though Ned had yet to loose a single jar. Bells tolled from every sept-tide. Fishermen knelt on decks, sailors let their lines slack, children cried without knowing why. Cersei retired behind closed doors with her children and the King's Guard. When Ned arrived, decree in hand, Sir Boros barred the way, white cloak rustling like parchment. My lady demands privacy in her grief. The knight sneered. Stand aside, Ned said. Ice glittered on his breast. Sir Boros hesitated, glance flicking to the sword's wolf head pommel. But Jaime materialized, lips curved, and Ned felt the weight of his pending sin like chains about the neck. If I draw now, none shall live to see the morrow. He lowered his hand. Tell your queen I must speak with her. Her Grace will send for you, Jaime replied. He leaned in, voice a golden whisper. A word of advice, Lord Stark. The game grows perilous. Choose your next move wisely. Wise? The man who had murdered his king spoke of wisdom. Ned strode away, fury pounding within him, every step echoing the call for blood. He turned the corridors like a wolf in a snare, driving himself downward until chill drafts told him he'd reached the cellars. There, amid barrels of Dornish red, he braced both palms against the stone and breathed. Eyes closed until the rage subsided to a low tremor. He pictured Robb at Winterfell's gates, sword in hand, and Jon upon the wall, gazing northward into the endless white. He pictured Bran's small body broken, yet unbowed, and Catelyn's face stained by tears too long constrained. He pictured the faces of every man who had marched at his side during the Greyjoy rebellion, trusting his commands. Their ghosts waited upon his next decision. Then he climbed. By evening, Hallyne's raven returned. The wildfire had been buried without mishap. Lannister outriders had passed within bowshot of the alchemists disguised as woodcutters and had ridden on, unsuspecting. All was ready. Ned reread the parchment thrice, something twisting inside him tighter each time. The trigger was his to decide. A black-fletched arrow fired from a hidden hedge. A cask of lamp oil rolled into a cook fire. The spark of a flint struck by some forgotten soldier. So simple. So irrevocable. Sansa begged an audience then, cheeks blotched from weeping. Sir Joffrey wishes to see me, father. He is frightened. They say enemies gather beyond the walls. Her voice quavered, still believing the lie of a boy prince brave and gentle. Ned promised to speak with the queen, though his gut nodded at the thought. When Sansa departed, he collapsed into a chair. How could he damn legions of men with one hand while stroking his daughter's hair with the other? He thought of Lyanna again, roses spilling from her hands like drops of blood. He saw Rhaegar dead upon the Trident, his ruin bought by Robert's fury. Firefather's only ashes. Yet Robert had won a throne. Had he? Candlelight elongated the room, distorted familiar shapes into monstrous ones. Ned Stark, who once executed deserters with a clean sweep of ice, now plotted massacre with Greek fire. Was this truly the same man? He felt flayed of skin, his raw self exposed to every bitter wind of doubt. But the night did not care. It marched on, relentless. Across the city, Varys padded through secret doors into Ned's solar. The eunuch materialized like a moth from the gloom. Lord Stark, might I intrude? Your spiders bring news? A web grows restless, my lord. Whispers speak of 5 wagons south of the city burdened with rare merchandise. Ned's heart thumped once, hard. You see spies in every shadow. Varys smiled sadly. And find them, more often than not. The 7 kingdoms hang upon knotted strings tonight. I would not see them severed by unwise ambition. Ambition. Ned stood. You think I wish the throne? Varys waved a delicate hand. Not you. Yet can any man unleash such power and remain unchanged? Ned strode to the window. Torches guttered along the battlements like fireflies. I did what I must to protect the innocent. Ah. The spymaster's voice softened. So often it begins with protection, my dear lord. But Wildfire is a hound that turns upon its master. Ask King Aerys if you can find a tongue in his ashes. Ned turned, shadowed. What would you counsel? A solution with less finality. Remove the source of the war, Cersei's claim. Varys stepped closer. Send the queen to a silent exile, or seize her children softly in the night. Offer them hostages of peace. The realm might bleed less. To steal children is dishonor. To burn them beneath green flame is worse. Ned felt the accusation strike true. He looked away. Jaime sits his siege tomorrow. There is no time. There is always time, my lord. Until there is none. Varys inclined his bald head and melted back through the panel, leaving Ned alone with the whisper of scuttling feet. Deep in the bowels of the castle, Hallie knelt before small gods wrought of emerald glass and prayed for conflagration. Flames in his braziers danced green, reflecting in his fevered eyes. He saw his order restored to glory, saw King's Landing regard the alchemists' guild with awe. The last lord hand to glimpse such visions had been Rossart, and his corpse had floated the Blackwater still smoldering. But Hallie believed history merely waited for the bold. Across the hall, his journeymen polished sealed jars, arranging them in wicker housings for transport to archers' nests upon the walls. They whispered songs older than dragonfire. Each note summoned scents of lime and sulfur, and each jar seemed to throb with life. Should Tywin's second host near the city, while Jaime laid siege, King's Landing itself would become a furnace. That too, Ned Stark had sanctioned with a single nod. In the pre-dawn hush before the day Lannister banners were expected to crest the eastern ridge, Ned donned his armor. He drew each leather strap tight, feeling muscles strain beneath the weight. Ice weighted upon 2 squires' shoulders. He took the greatsword in both hands, bowing his head as if before the sept's altar. A knock at the door. It was Lord Petyr Baelish, smile as sharp as a skinning knife. You rise early, my lord. Sleep is for men with lighter burdens. True, and yet you shoulder a burden I might relieve, for a price. Littlefinger strolled inside unbidden, plucking a grape from Ned's untouched bowl. I know where the city watch will stand when swords are bared. Whisper in my ear the name to which their loyalty should turn, and gold shall buy their souls. Ned answered with the silence of steel. Littlefinger's smile widened. Very well. Then perhaps you will at least consider securing your daughters with someone less volatile than the queen. Ned's fist clenched. You threaten my children? I offer an escape, my lord. nothing more. That. Get out. Ice glimmered between them. Littlefinger bowed from the waist, all mocking grace. "As you command." He withdrew, but his words lingered like a stain upon the air. Ned exhaled. It became a silent vow. If this city burns, my daughters will not. He would drag them north at sword point if need be, through smoke and ruin. He turned to the map table. Pins marked 5 pits of wildfire east of the Blackwater. Scouts reported Lannister outriders mere miles away. By nightfall, their campfires would sparkle across those meadows. Ned touched one pin. The cold iron felt like a hinge upon which fate would swing. The door swung open again. This time Jory's cousin Tomard entered, armor clinking. "Lord Stark, the Kingsguard summons you to the throne room. Queen Cersei calls court." Ned sheathed ice across his back. "Tell Ser Boros I come." He followed Tomard through corridors thrumming with tension. Outside the throne room, gold-hound white guards barred the way, but parted at word of the hand. Within, sunlight stabbed through high windows, painting bloody bars across the hall. Cersei sat upon the iron throne, a coronet of gold clasping her hair. Joffrey perched beside her in a high seat, face pale, eyes gleaming like a hawk's. Sansa stood behind him, trembling but composed. Littlefinger lingered near the steps, fingers steepled. Ser Barristan Selmy knelt before the throne, confusion etched deep. As Ned advanced, Ser Boros and Ser Meryn flanked him with spear-straight posture. The hush was absolute. Cersei's smile could have frosted glass. "Lord Stark," she intoned, voice ringing, "we have grievous news. My husband, the noble King Robert, has passed this life. The realm mourns." "Mine." Ned bowed stiffly. "May the gods grant him rest." She leaned forward. "Yet already dark forces rise to threaten his heir. Traitors walk these halls, my lord. Will you swear fealty to King Joffrey?" Every face turned. Ned felt the eyes like daggers. He drew forth Robert's decree, seal intact. "Robert Baratheon named me protector of the realm." He handed it to Ser Barristan, who read, brow furrowing. Murmurs rippled. Cersei's voice cracked like ice. That was before wine and pain clouded his mind. "The king was of sound mind," Ned replied. "He commands that Joffrey hold the throne only after the rightful heir." Shock blossomed. Joffrey stood, features contorted. "I am the rightful heir. Kneel before me, Stark." Ned's hand dropped to ice. Gold cloaks poured through side doors. Littlefinger's face lit with sly triumph. But Ser Barristan moved first. He looked from Cersei to Ned, conflict warring in his clear blue eyes. In that heartbeat, all Ned's calculations, all his careful patience balanced on a knife's edge. He could name Stannis now, seize the queen, and hope the wildfire remained buried. Or he could feign compliance, bide hours more, until Jaime's host settled on its pyre of green flame. Each path bled. He saw Arya's stubborn chin. He saw Sansa's pale terror. He saw the meadows east of the Blackwater, dew-damp, awaiting dawn's first spark. He opened his mouth. The throne room doors crashed wide. Ser Jaime strode in, gilded armor flashing, a parchment fluttering in his hand. "Hold, dear sister." His voice rolled like distant thunder. "I have tidings from father." He ascended the steps and presented the letter. Cersei scanned it, color draining. Ned's heart pounded. Had Tywin learned of the wildfire? Was everything undone? Jaime's eyes found Ned's, and for a moment the air between them felt charged with some terrible knowing. Then he smiled. A slow, certain curl of the lips, the razor smile of a man whose prey has no escape. It was in that instant Ned Stark understood. Fate had cast its lot, and the green fire was a beast already unchained, pacing unseen behind every heartbeat. Whether he spoke truth or lied, whether he bent knee or drew sword, the wildfire waited, impartial and hungry. He took one breath, steady as the winter wind of home. Then he chose. I. The sudden hush raced outward from the dais like frost spreading over a pond, and Ned could taste the brittle chill of it on his tongue. Jaime Lannister's boot heels rang on the marble as he surrendered the parchment to Cersei, but his eyes stayed fixed upon Ned, bright, expectant, almost gleeful, as though he had laid a final stone in a cunning trap and now waited for the steel jaws to spring. Ned's hand tightened around Ice Wolfhead pommel. A dozen Kingsguard stood arrayed in white, but the gold cloaks massing near the pillars glimmered treacherous yellow, their loyalty bought by Littlefinger's coins. Beyond them all, Sansa sagged in horror. One trembling hand pressed to her mouth. Arya lurked nowhere in sight. Gods be merciful. Cersei's gaze flicked like a serpent's tongue across the lines of Tywin's letter before lifting toward Ned. Something hungry coiled behind her painted calm. Jaime half-turned so the hall could witness the slow drummer's beat of a satisfied smile. "My Lord Stark," Cersei called, her voice velvet with poison. "Lord Tywin, Warden of the West, sends word that a grievous plot against the crown has come to his ears." She let the parchment roll shut, golden fingers lingering upon the seal. "He has named you chief architect." A murmur rose. Small folk courtiers sucking air between teeth, knights shifting weight, the dull clatter of armor echoing like distant thunder. Ned breathed once, long and deep, as if drawing in all the cold winds of the north. The old gods murmured in that breath. "Steady, steady. Lord Tywin mistakes prudence for plot," he replied, tone carved from hoarfrost. "I act at the late king's command." But already Sir Boros and Sir Meryn were closing in, white cloaks whispering, their eyes blank plate behind helms. Past them, Littlefinger pressed two fingers against his lips, smirk half hidden. Ned could almost hear the mocking whisper he had once spoken in this very hall. "We only make peace with our enemies, my lord, never with our friends." Ned caught Sir Barristan's eye. The old knight's doubt had cracked into alarm. He understood that if Stark honor fell, the realm would topple after. Yet even Selmy alone could not cleave through a mob of gold cloaks and Kingsguard. Ned felt time thicken like cooling pitch. One heartbeat, two then, ice rasped free. The great swords of Valyrian ripples shimmered under torchlight, and a hush as wide as the god's eye swallowed every voice in the hall. A child sobbed, and was stilled by her mother's frightened hand. "If there is treason, it stands not here," Ned said, words falling like millstones. "But any man who draws steel on me or mine, before this council, shall answer to Winterfell's wrath." Sir Meryn's helm cocked fractionally, as though even steel could feel surprise. Jaime's smile faded a single hair's breadth. He eased Oathkeeper half an inch from its scabbard, testing weight. Bold words, stark and true. Ned's gaze swept the hall. "I name Stannis Baratheon rightful king by Robert's own decree, witnessed by the Lord Commander of his Kingsguard. I call upon every sworn sword here to do his duty." An instant of ringing stillness, then chaos surged in like breaking surf. Gold cloaks shouted as one, surging forward. Sir Barristan leapt between Ned and danger, blade a silver blur. Ned swung ice in a low arc that bit a spear half clean in two. Wood clattered, and a guardsman screamed, clutching a half-severed hand. Cersei shrieked, "Seize him!" spittle bright on her lips. But even as bodies crashed and steel sang, a different roar began, deeper, more terrible, a rumbling bellow from the city beyond the keep. The tapestry-hung walls trembled. A breath later came a concussive boom that shook dust from the rafters and set the Iron Throne's shadow quivering like a living thing. Sunlight flashing through the colored windows flickered green for an instant, ghostly and sick. Wildfire. Ned felt the sound in his bones. The meadows east of the Blackwater had ignited too early. His mind lurched after sense. Who? Why? But only dread answered. Yet he had no greed of seconds to waste on dread. A Kingsguard spear lanced past his cheek. He pivoted, ice-cleaving shield and shoulder both, sending a man in gilded mail crashing back across the floor. The throne room's side doors burst as smallfolk servants flooded inward, screaming about green hell pouring from the horizon. Panic avalanched through courtiers. A brazier overturned, coals bounced, hissing. Sansa cried out, reaching for her father. Joffrey howled to the gold cloaks to form wall, but his voice cracked and died in the uproar. Ned carved a path toward Sansa, Barristan at his flank. Littlefinger darted ahead, seizing her wrist. She almost followed, trusting the friendly face she knew. A roar ripped from Ned's throat, a northern war cry raw with a father's terror, and ice whirled overhead. Littlefinger leapt back, dropping her hand, his smile gone to a snarl. Barristan parried 2 spears, then seized Sansa's shoulder, pushing her behind Ned. "Go," the old knight rasped. But Jaime was there now. Golden hair streaked red, where an errant blow had grazed his scalp. He danced through bodies as lightly as a willow in breeze. One white-cloaked brother fell to his elbow stab, another to a backhand slash. Jaime's laugh rode the clangor. "Come now, Stark. Show me that northern steel truly bites." Before Ned could answer, another thunderclap shook the hall. Tiles rippled beneath their boots. Dust cascaded, mingled with fine green vapor slipping through shutter cracks. Somewhere distant, bells clanged in mad alarm, clamor rising above the roar of unstoppable fire. And into that cacophony reeled Hallan the pyromancer, face blackened, robe smoking, clutching a cracked jar that burbled a luminous jade through fracturing glass. Fear bulged his eyes white. "Forgive me, Lord Stark." A spark in transport. The chain reaction. The jar slipped. Instinct trumped thought. Barristan hurled himself forward and booted the thing away, his greaves sparking the floor. The jar smashed against a marble column where a Myrish tapestry of Nymeria's flight draped. For a heartbeat, the column drank the emerald ooze. Then the world tore open. Whatever grace remained in the throne room dissolved in screaming emerald fury. Flame blossomed, liquid and alive, wrapping the column in a serpent's coils, cascading onto terrified courtiers. Silk burst aflame faster than thought, people igniting as though they were oil-soaked wicks. Ned seized Sansa, feeling hair scorch as heat pummeled him. "To the door!" he bellowed. Jaime darted back, cloak catching, a dragon's tongue of green licking along its hem. He shed the cloak, spinning free, eyes wide. No laughter now. "Seven hells, Stark, what have you done?" "I?" Ned's answer drowned in roar. Another blast from the far city roared cannon loud. Dust burst from mortar joints overhead. Stone groaned. The Iron Throne's blade-tined backrest quivered, as if about to spring alive. Somewhere behind Ned, Ser Boros shouted commands, drowned by shrieks and by the infernal crackle. Flames raced across the chamber floor in rivulets, following spilled wildfire that trickled like molten glass from the shattered jar. Barristan waded through it, cloak sizzling, carving a burning swath to force survivors toward the exit. Ned thrust Sansa ahead of him. A girl scrambled to rise beside a fallen lady whose skirts blazed. Ned grabbed her arm too, heedless of name, and shoved both children into Barristan's path. The main doors stood jammed by the press of bodies. Barristan's shoulder charge drove a wedge. Ned, roaring, heaved from behind. Wood split. An avalanche of nobles spilled into the corridor beyond, trampling. Smoke billowed behind them, shot with emerald streaks. Ned spun to see if Joffrey followed, but the dais was lost behind a wall of boiling light. He glimpsed Cersei's silhouette hauling the boy through a servant's arch, Jaime at their flank. Then Wildfire kissed a trailing tapestry. The archway vanished in chloroformed glare. Stone lintel stones cracked, sending shards skipping across the floor like thrown daggers. "Father!" Sansa sobbed, tugging. He turned. Barristan had Sansa and the other girl. Distantly Ned recognized Lana Tyrell, herding them down the corridor. Tamar barreled up from a side stair with 4 Winterfell guardsmen. Relief speared Ned until he realized Arya was not among them. "Arya, find her." Tamar nodded, face set like granite, and plunged the way Ned pointed, into a smoke-fogged corner of the keep. Ned wheeled back to Barristan. "Take Sansa to the stable gate. Ride for the great Septi steps. The crowd will be thick but the stone is high. Hold there until you see me." "I will not leave your lordship." "You will." Ned's grip on Barristan's forearm was iron. "On my honor, I follow. She is your king's daughter until Stannis arrives." Barristan searched Ned's eyes. Then he bowed once, swift. He draped his scorched white cloak over Sansa's shoulders and swept the girls on. Ned coughed smoke, blinked tears. The Kraken's swirl of chaos hammered every hall. The rattle of panicked armor, the clang of dropped blades, above all the shaking roar of distant incendiaries blooming across the eastern horizon. He felt each new detonation through the flagstones. Wildfire caches buried around the meadows had chained themselves one to the next. Thousands of jars, not 500. Hallen had over-delivered, or someone had tampered. He sprinted down a stair, boots pounding. Narrow windows flashed green and gold, epileptic. Lower roofs near Maegor's holdfast already burned. Ash flurried like black snow, swirling among embers that rode the gusts. Ned headed for the Queen's Passage that cut beneath the holdings to the royal nursery, where Arya, if frightened, sometimes hid. Twice he passed corpses, a washerwoman curled fettle, hair fused to scalp, a Lannister guard half melted into chainmail. The stench clawed his throat. He forced himself onward. At a junction, Varys emerged, robe soiled, face slick with sweat. "My lord, the eastern city wall burns. The wind drives flame toward Flea Bottom." "Arya," Ned gasped. "I have men searching." The girl was seen near the stables with a Braavosi dancing master. They headed riverward. Ned nearly sagged. If Syrio Forel yet lived and guided her. Hope breathed. But Syrio was one man. The streets seethed with rioters and smoke. "Tell your men I ride to her." Varys nodded, eyes shining with something almost like pity. "Ride swift, Lord Stark. The Blackwater is alight from bank to bank." Ned stumbled past him, taking the spiral stairs, 3, 4 at a stride. He burst into a courtyard where a water fountain hissed under drifting ash. Horses screamed from the royal mews. Stable boys fought to free them. Flames gnawed at the thatch. He spotted his gray gelding, shied against a half-collapsed stall. Ned vaulted debris, soothing murmurs lost in din. He cut the reins loose with ice, sheathed, then swung up bareback. Sparks peppered his cloak. As he wheeled toward the sally gate, someone shouted his name. Littlefinger limped into the yard, doublet scorched, clutching a bleeding ear. "Stark, wait. What devil's bargain now, Baelish?" Littlefinger spat pink froth. "The City Watch obeys me still. I can cover your escape, your girl, your guard, your fortune. If you swear to withdraw north and leave King's Landing to me." And hand him the throne's purse strings, Ned thought. Fire's glow danced in Baelish's eyes like coins. Ned shook his head. "I withdraw my trust, not my honor." "Honor?" Littlefinger laughed ragged. "Honor won't quench those flames, or feed the small folk when granaries burned eye to eye." Ned dug heels into the gelding. "Then perhaps you should have thought of that before you sold the city's soul." He galloped full down the ramp, leaving Littlefinger's curses to drown in the rising roar. He burst onto the Street of Sisters. Panic owned the roadway. Merchants hauling carts stacked with possessions, mothers dragging wailing children, septons waving censers as though smoke might eat flame. Ash drifted, thick as winter flurry. Ned steered through, bellowing for passage. Folk parted at sight of ice. Ahead, the river gate loomed, bronze doors swung wide by deserter guards who now fled the city. The Blackwater beyond lay transformed into a nightmare painting. Great tongues of green fire skipping across the water, where leaking wildfire barrels bobbed like lanterns adrift. Hulks of charred boats drifted keel up. Sailors punted skiffs laden with screaming refugees, but contact with a floating spark set several ablaze in sudden hell. Ned's stomach ice. He reined before the gate and scanned the choked quay. There, on the last span of unburnt wharf, stood Syrio Forel, sword cane flashing as he parried 3 gold cloaks at once. Behind him, Arya clutched a pack to her chest, fierce eyes darting for escape. Flames licked a moored fishing boat beside them, its nets already smoldering. Ned roared her name and charged. The gelding's hooves hammered planks, scattering attackers. One cloak swung a glaive. Ned's crosscut took the man at the jaw, shearing helm and sparks. Syrio pivoted to guard Arya's back. "I taught her water dancing," he called over the din. "But not yet how to fly." "The pier," Ned shouted. We take water stairs north to the mud gate. Even with fire writhed upon river, a narrow strip of bank between waves of flame still shimmered open. A fresh knot of gold cloaks gestured from the seawall tower, crossbows leveled. Ned urged Arya beneath the pier. Syrio vaulted after, nimble. Ned's gelding shrieked as a quarrel bit deep, crumpling. Ned rolled free, ice clanged onto stone. Flames leapt along the toppled horse's mane. He dragged Arya under the bulkhead. Smoke gusted, punitive. "Stay close," he coughed. Syrio splashed beside them, chest-deep water carrying slick green sheens. The bank path serpentined between stone footings and shifting fire curtains, bobbing offshore. Each jar that burst afar flung fireworks skyward. Brief emerald suns lighting charred remains. The rising tide hissed against glowing debris. Ned led, gripping Arya's sleeve. Syrio took rear guard, blade ready. They wove beneath the burnt timbers of battered docks, over drifts of hot cinders. Twice Ned dunked his cloak in water to slap out sparks on Arya's jerkin. She did not cry, her face speckled with soot, set in grim resolve older than her years. Ahead loomed the mud gate tower, its wooden palisade blazing bright. But the arch itself held, stone defying flame. Through swirling smoke Ned saw shapes, Winterfell men, Tamard among them, forming shield wall to hold panicked crowds at bay. Beyond their line stood Sansa, shaken yet unscathed beneath Barristan's scorched cloak. A rush of gratitude staggered Ned. He hauled Arya onto the embankment. Tamard's roar answered. Guards split formation to envelope them. Ned crushed both daughters close. One moment only, because death still prowled. Barristan strode up, helm singed. The queen fled west, small retinue only. Jaime with her. Gold cloaks brawl, gold cloaks for command. The city watch bleeds. Ned surveyed the skyline. Green pillars rose where wildfire pits had been, yet merciful wind now pushed inland flames eastward toward open fields, away from the city proper. The great sept's marble dome glimmered safe across rooftops. But new plumes rose beyond the Lion Gate. Tywin's reserve must be charging blind into inferno. How many men remain loyal? Tamard looked to Barristan, who answered. 100 Winterfell swords, 50 White Harbor, 30 Riverlanders sworn to River Run, all camped north of the city before the rush. Within walls, perhaps 200 more who heed Stark banners. Ned faced them. Gather every healer for the wounded. Douse pockets of flame near granaries. Use river water, earth, whatever you can muster, and secure the Guildhall vaults. No more wildfire must see daylight. Aye, Barristan agreed. Ned sheathed ice, climbed a half-crumbled stair to the rampart's parapet. From that perch, he witnessed the breadth of his doomed stratagem. On the eastern plain, a vast scab of smoldering green scars stretched mile on mile. White-armored flecks, the survivors of Jaime's vanguard, scattered like ants before hot coals. Discipline gone. Ziga towers burned where they fell. Ned could not rejoice. Each pillar of smoke was a monument to mistake. Then, thunder of hooves behind the flames. A fresh host rode the ridge, banners of golden lions shimmering under the rising sun. Tywin himself, undeterred, had brought second legions by night, marched out. He would see the ruin before him, smell the char, and know wrath. Ned's fate and the city's had diverged. To remain behind walls invited Tywin's siege and serpentine plots. Yet to ride out in parley amidst an ash field promised arrows. He needed a third path. He turned to find Arya at his heel, eyes reflecting the horrible beauty of the conflagration. She spoke low. There's a hidden stair through the Tower of the Winged Knight. Syrio showed me. It leads outside the walls where nobody looks. Ned crouched, hands on her shoulders. You would sneak your father out? I would stand beside you. And he believed she would. But childhood deserved mercy. You must guard Sansa now, and Bran when he comes south. Her lip trembled, but she nodded. He gathered his captains within the tower's shade. Barristan, command the defense. Keep the small folk inside the main walls. Protect the sept and the granaries. Tamard, escort my daughters to the Godswood. They know the path. Hide there until Barristan sends word. And you, Lord Stark? Barristan asked. I ride to treat with Tywin. Gasps circled, but Ned raised a hand. Not as conqueror, not to taunt. I go with the truth. His son's army fell to a weapon that can scour cities. A weapon I now renounce. Littlefinger's words echoed. Honor will not quench flames. But Ned forged resolve from Winterfell ice. We will give him Jaime's survivors, tended and ransomed. We will give him Wildfire casks, unbroken, to prove our good faith. We will swear the Alchemists' Guild confined forever. In return, he withdraws beyond the Mander until a great council decides succession. A fool's hope, Barristan murmured. Perhaps. Yet hope is all the realm has left. Wind shifted. Smoke thinned just enough to reveal shapes of men stumbling among corpses in the plain. White cloaks stained black, dragged wounded fellows from pits still smoking. Ned's heart pulled taut. Not all enemies deserved green death. He swung into a fresh mount offered by a stable hand, its coat already dusted whitish gray. Barristan clasped forearms with him. If you are captured, we march. Swear you will hold, Sir Barristan. The city must not fall to pillage. Sansa pressed a kerchief into his gauntlet. For luck, she whispered. He kissed her brow. Did the same for Arya. Tasted ash and salt. Then Ned Stark led a small escort through the winged night stair. 3 Stark guards and Syrio Forel, who insisted on remaining. They emerged beyond the broken moat at dawn's full bloom. The sky above the plain was bruised purple beneath towering plumes that blotted sunrise. Riding east, they passed Charnel. Wildfire consumed even bones, yet pockets of remains lay where jars had spared them. A soldier black with soot, eyes glassy. A warhorse whose gilded chamfron melted to skull. Some survivors crouched quaking, mouths too scorched to scream. Ned's men dismounted, shared skins of water. Syrio knelt by one wailing boy, murmured a prayer in Braavosi. The youth clung, sobbing until thirst overcame. Near midfield, Ned halted. Carcasses of siege engines jutted like charred ribs. The grass for half a league shimmered with glassy residue that crackled under hoof. He raised a plain white banner stitched hastily from cloaks. Across the ruin, Lannister outriders approached. Knights in battered crimson, horsetails singed. They formed wedge. One called, "Who ride?" Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell. "I seek audience with Lord Tywin." The outrider listened, then galloped back. Time eddied in silence, broken only by distant wood crackling and the keening wind across burnt meadow. Ned smelled nothing. Wildfire numbed scent. When the outrider returned, he was flanked by 2 banners, the roaring lion and, unexpectedly, the crowned stag of Robert's line. Between them rode Tywin Lannister on a great black destrier, armor immaculate. He had watched Inferno from safe vantage, robes unsinged. His pale eyes regarded Ned without flicker. Also beside him, helmed and straight-backed, sat Stannis Baratheon. Ned's breath caught. The stag banner had found its rightful bearer after all. Tywin must have drawn Stannis from Dragonstone with promises, or threats. They reined to speaking distance. Ned bowed from the saddle, solemn. "Lord Tywin, your grace." His gaze lingered on Stannis, finding flint-hard acknowledgement. Tywin's voice carried steel. "Lord Stark, you have loosed a dragon's breath upon my host." "Explain." "I commissioned 500 jars to break your siege machines, not men. Saboteurs multiplied that count. The result grieves me, as I believe it grieves you." "Benny." Tywin's gauntlet tightened on reins. "Saboteurs? Yours or mine? Whose profits grow when lion and wolf bleed each other?" Ned answered. "Littlefinger buys turmoil. Varys spins webs. The guild grows fat on fear. Perhaps they acted, perhaps free riders hoping to sell the city after ashes cooled. I launch inquiry at once." Tywin studied him as if weighing ore for gold content. Then he flicked ashes from his cloak. Your remorse rings hollow beside charred sons of Lannister banners. I will return each survivor unharmed, offer ransom for noble dead, and grant you all remaining Wildfire for safe disposal." Tywin's silence was long. Stannis broke it. "And what of succession, Lord Stark?" Ned met those relentless eyes. "Robert's decree names you rightful king." Tywin's gaze flicked sideways. Displeasure curled his lip, but he held it in check. "Stannis may press his claim after my vengeance. Vengeance will birth only widows." Ned gestured to the wasteland. "Witness fruit of vengeance. I propose a great council at Harrenhal, each great house to vote. Withdraw your host beyond the Mander until council's ruling, and I pledge Winterfell's swords hold the capital in peace, awaiting verdict." "Maltradral." Stannis considered, jaw grinding. Tywin's nostrils flared. "And the queen?" the lion asked. "Cersei fled the city. When found, she will face trial at council for regicide and false heirs." Tywin's temper smoldered, yet he was not a man ruled by heart. Calculations wheeled behind his eyes. Half his vanguard lay ashes, morale savaged. Marching on a city holding untapped wildfire and commanded by Barristan, Selmy risked total ruin. Perhaps he saw, too, an opportunity. A council could be bent with gold. Stannis spoke first. "I will convene council, under the gods' eyes, 420 days hence." Tywin inclined his head, a fractional nod that meant consent shrouded in contempt. "Very well, Lord Stark. We withdraw across the Mander by sunset." Relief did not buoy Ned. The path forward remained treacherous. But the city would not be sacked today. He bowed. "Then let this field see no more blood." Stannis spurred nearer. "I hold you to your word, Stark. If treachery hatches again, Dragonfire will seem gentle by comparison." Ned met the man's flint with tempered steel. "And I hold you to yours, your grace." They parted. Ned led his escort back through ruin, hearts heavy, but burden eased by hope's small flame. Before the mud gate, citizens lined ramparts. Blackened faces upturned in fear and wonder. News raced as fast as horse. Tywin withdraws. Council summoned. Stannis named rightful king. Yet also, wild rumors of green demons, of Stark sorcery, of dragons reborn beneath the city. Ned dismounted in the yard where his daughters waited beside Barristan and Varys, both streaked with soot. Tamar knelt, bloodied but smiling. "It is done," Ned said wearily. "The city stands. For now." Sansa buried her face in his jerkin. Arya hugged one leg, clinging silent. Ned folded arms around both, inhaling their smoke-tangled hair, as though it were clean mountain air. Barristan rested a gauntleted hand on Ned's shoulder. "Word reaches that Jaime surrendered himself, seeing the host retreat. He awaits beneath the king's lair cell." Ned nodded grim thanks. Even victory tasted ash. "See him guarded, but treat his wounds." Varys cleared his throat. "And Queen Cersei?" "Find her," Ned said, "before Tywin does." Night fell purple-black over King's Landing. The wind shifted northward, carrying smoke from the plains out to sea. On the city wall, Ned Stark kept vigil between two guttering torches. Below, healers moved among camp beds lining the streets, administering water, prayers, and milk of the poppy. Somewhere a babe wailed. Somewhere a drunken soldier laughed, alive against odds. The city breathed, ragged but breathing. Sansa slept in the solar surrounded by Winterfell maids. Arya crouched near Ned now, chin on knees, eyes huge under flickering torch. She spoke quietly. "Was it all for nothing, father?" He thought of charred banners flapping in dead wind, of Tywin's measured rage, of the council's uncertain scales. He thought of Robert's smile, now dust, and of Lyanna's roses. He thought of Wildfire still slumbering in hidden vaults. "No," he said at last, voice soft as falling snow. "But our task is far from done." He smoothed a soot-smeared lock from her cheek. "Tomorrow we begin to make this right." Arya nodded, as though she had expected no easier road. She leaned against him, small weight warm through wool and mail. Ned gazed across the moon-silvered river, where plumes still glowed faintly. He whispered to the old gods of the north and the seven faces of the south, begged guidance for paths tangled and dark. In the great silence that followed, only the hush of distant waves replied. Yet in that hush he heard, perhaps, a promise that so long as good men strove with honest hearts, dawn would find them. And when dawn came, it spilled crimson gold across the rooftops, setting every soot-stained tile aglow like beaten copper. Smoke lifted in lazy columns, but the wind sang fresher. Ned Stark straightened aching shoulders. 5 hours had passed since Wildfire first kissed the sky. 5 hours that had stretched long as winter's night. Now with sun rising, he set foot down the stair to shape the fragile hours yet to come. K. Ned Stark awoke in the pre-dawn hush of the Tower of the Hand, to the rasp of a wet whetstone sliding along steel. For a heartbeat the sound was Winterfell, his father honing ice in the godswood before an execution. Then he blinked, and the salt stench of the Blackwater returned, mingled with the faint chemical bitterness that clung to King's Landing now like a guilty conscience. Across the chamber, Barristan Selmy sat at a low bench, sharpening his longsword in slow, methodical strokes. The old knight had removed his scorched white cloak and gone bare-armed. Candlelight limned furrows of muscle and scar that belied his age. Ned rose, joints protesting. "You should rest, sir." Barristan did not look up. "Does honor rest, my lord? Not while its watch is kept by flesh." He set the stone aside, inspected the edge. "You have held the city through one night. Dawn may find a different test." As if summoned, the bells of the great sept began to toll the hour. Slow, sonorous peals trembling the glass in the casements. Outside, the first cocks crowed, uncertain amid the smoke that still drifted in thin veils across the rooftops. Ned poured water from a pitcher, splashed his face, tasted soot in the droplets. He thought of Bran's snow-wreathed face and Robb's nervous courage as he took his first muster at Moat Cailin. A lifetime west of here, those suns walked through dreams of wolf song and northern starshine. Yet in this southern furnace, Ned must play the mummer's show of regent, general, and would-be savior. He donned boiled leather brigandine rather than full plate, more suited to corridors than battlefields, then slung ice across his back. The greatsword's weight felt heavier than yesterday, as though the Valyrian steel had drunk sorrow and grown gravid with it. Barristan rose, cinched his sword belt, and together they descended to the small hall that served now as war room. There they found a congress of unlikely allies. Davos Seaworth, freshly arrived across the bay under white flag, smelled of salt and smoked herring. Maester Luwin of Winterfell, summoned south by urgent raven, leaned on a cane after long travel. Lord Garland Tyrell, armor dented but polished, stood with arms crossed beside his cousin Lana. The girl Ned had pulled from Wildfire's path, while a pair of grim-faced septons... Davos inclined his head. "My Lord Hand, His Grace sends greetings and requests your presence aboard the Fury by afternoon tide. He prepares a charter of the Great Council." Ned motioned him toward a chair. "We will attend, but first the city must breathe. How many jars remain unspent?" At the far table, Septon Maribald, recalled from river missions, looked up, eyes red. "The guild admits to 5,600. Halene's estimate was 3,000 yesterday." He rubbed his temples. "I fear their vaults are as ordered as a flea-bottom wine list." Davos swore softly. "Stannis will see every jar sunk beneath the sea, and Tywin will demand the same," Garland said. "After Bitterbridge he looks less fond of green fires." Ned spread a city map marred by fresh ink splotches. Each indicated a cache. "We move them tonight. Load onto river barges manned by sworn guards and sealed wagons under daylight escort. No torches within 100 yards. By dusk they're scuttled 2 leagues downriver." Luwin adjusted spectacles. "Some jars may be centuries old. Sunlight alone could." "Then screen with canvas," Ned answered. "Better risk a handful than the capital entire." The table murmured assent. Ned turned to the next ledger. Wounded and missing. Barristan read the grim totals. 200 small folk burned beyond healing. 70 gold cloaks dead or dying. 40 Lannister knights left in the field whose fates remained unknown. More ghostly were the blanks. names uncounted because no body remained. Each gap weighed like an accusation. A servant slipped in, whispered to Barristan. The old knight's lined face tightened. He gestured Ned aside. Email Lannister requests audience. Says he will speak only to you. Nay. Ned's impulse was refusal, but necessity barked louder. Where? Chamber of the King's Guard. I will go. He faced the room. Continue assigning companies to bury the dead. Sir Garland, oversee fields east of the city. Davos, you and Maester Lewin coordinate river transport. Barristan, prepare royal barges for council voyage. They nodded. As Ned departed, Davos caught his sleeve. You showed mercy yesterday, my lord. Stannis sees it, even if he won't say so. A faint smile. Mercy may seed loyalties you'll harvest in time. Ned clasped the smuggler's wrist, calluses rough against his own. Then may the crop grow swift. The corridor to the Kingsguard wing bore fresh scorch marks where sparks had chased drafts. 2 white cloaks flanked the door. Sir Balon Swan, bandaged across the brow, and Sir Eris Oakheart with arm in sling. They bowed. Balon unlocked the oaken door. Jaime sat unbound in a plain chair, golden hair tied back, wounds dressed. A book rested open on his knee. The 7-pointed star of all things. He looked up, green eyes dancing as always. Ah, Lord Stark. Come to rob me of confession? Ned closed the door and remained standing. I came to ask why you surrendered. Surrender? Jaime snapped the book shut. The field surrendered when you set it alight. I merely walked through the ash. He leaned back. Besides, my sister fled too fast to take passengers. I'd have made poor baggage. Ned studied him. The Kingslayer's left cheek bore a splash of raw burn. His right gauntlet lay on the table, fingers fused, testament to near escape. Your father accuses me of slaughter, Ned said. Tell him how May died, because the Kingslayer would camp siege towers atop buried fire. Jaime's smile faltered. Oh, I'll tell him. Tywin loves tales of his heir's failure. A brittle laugh. But not all casualties were mine, Stark. I saw green sheets sweep across your own outriders. War devours both sides. Ned's hands curled. I never intended massacre. Intention's a girl's cloak in winter. Jaime stood, stretched stiff muscles. Yet you hold the high seat now. So what will you do with me? River Run's dungeon. Trade me for your daughters? He said it lightly, but his eyes shadowed at mention of the girls. Your life could barter peace, Ned said. Jaime shook his head. Peace? With Stannis and my father circling like sharks? No, Stark. Peace died with Robert. Now it's a game of numbers. Who bleeds longest? Ned's voice chilled. Then I will keep you here as witness to the council. Do as you will. But mark me. If Cersei is cornered, she'll loose worse than Wildfire. She's braver than I. He lifted the star. You do well to pray. Ned turned away. Prayer answers souls, not schemes. He rapped the door. The guards opened. Before stepping out, he paused. If you truly fear your sister's next act, tell me where she hides. Jaime met his gaze. Cersei has many faces. The one you seek is a mother wolf cornered. Approach with care. He did not answer the question. Ned left him to the steward and the silent watchman. Mid-morning found Arya perched on the crenellations above the dragon gate, legs swinging as she gnawed a heel of bread. The sky had brightened to hazy pearl, the remnants of smoke high and thin. Below, teams of smallfolk and unburned Lannister prisoners labored with picks and shovels to break up the paved approach. They dug wide trenches that would become dragonfire moats, sediment-lined, set to flood from the city's cisterns as barrier against stray sparks. Water gurgled from pipes into the first ditch, carrying charred grasses. Arya chewed, studying their toil. Beneath the chatter and clank, she heard the faintest susurrus. Blades sliding in scabbards, bowstrings tested, men training for tomorrow's fears. The city was a wounded animal. Restlessness twitched its limbs even in exhaustion. She wiped crumbs on breeches and rose. "Best come down," said a voice. Syrio Forel leaned from a murder hole half a floor below. His once white tunic was now a patchwork of soot and stitched tears. Yet his dark eyes sparkled with the same mischief he'd worn across the narrow sea. The hand would break if his little blade cracked on the stones. Arya rolled her eyes but clambered down. Inside the tower, they moved along dim corridors, where mason's dust hung. Many of Ned's northern guards patrolled here. They greeted Syrio with awkward nods, still unaccustomed to the bravo's feline grace. Arya felt proud to walk his side. Yesterday he'd parried 3 spears in a halberd, moved like water, and lived. "What now?" she asked. Syrio paused before a narrow arrow slit, letting pale light stripe his face. "Now we dance slower steps." A water dancer waits, breathes, listens. He bent so their foreheads nearly touched. "You feel the city? The rhythm is broken. Many feet step wrong. You will listen with your eyes and your skin, yes?" "Meh." Arya mimicked his poised stance, arms extended. "I can, but I would rather fight." "Ah." Syrio half smiled. "Fighting is loud. Spying is quiet fighting. Useful for fathers who carry too many wars." He nodded down a side stair. "Come. There is a meeting of suspicious men in the cellars near the dragon pit. We listen. Learn, perhaps tell your lord later." Arya's pulse quickened. They slipped along a postern route seldom used. In a shadowed alcove, Syrio gestured for silence. Voices echoed through a cracked grate. Rough, low, speaking a tongue Arya couldn't place. Perhaps Myrish? She caught names: Baelish, Pay, and Nightglass. Then, in the common tongue, Jar 200. Coins clinked. Syrio touched Arya's wrist. "Wait." Footfalls neared. A latch slipped. A door scraped open. 2 men strode into a shaft of torchlight. One a bald merchant with gold earrings. The other a narrow fellow cloaked in rich purple. Arya recognized him. The Lyseni banker who'd supped with Lord Baelish 3 moons past. Each carried a small cask between them bearing the rune etched on Wildfire jars. They set it gently into a wheeled crate already half full. "I told you the hand will toss. All in the river," hissed the bald one in accent thick Westerosi. "Easier to fish after." The Lyseni grinned. "And 10 jars can finance twice your weight." They clapped hands and turned back. Arya's hand drifted to the dirk at her belt, but Syrio squeezed her shoulder. They waited until the cellar door slammed, then crept away. At top of the stair, Arya whispered, "They're stealing it." "Not just stealing," Syrio murmured. "Selling to whom? Some lord who hates both wolf and lion, perhaps. This we tell your father." He ruffled her smoke-sable hair. "Remember, little cat. The pack hunts by scent and silence before the killing bite." Ned listened with mounting anger. The small council had been stripped to bones. No Grand Maester. Pycelle lay bedridden, fevered, Littlefinger absent. Varys hovered near a tall casement like a pale moth. When Arya finished her account, Davos cursed under breath. Luwin's quill scratched notes. Ned pressed fingers to eyes. "Confirm the casks," he told Davos. "Take trusted men, and a pyromancer imprisoned if need be. Seize the thieves, no fires lit." Davos rose, hand on knife hilt, and departed with Syrio and a brace of Northmen. Arya lingered near the hearth. Ned knelt, gripped her shoulders. "You did well." She glowed but then asked, "Why not lock every Wildfire jar under guard?" "I mean to," Ned said. "But rats burrow in many walls. We must plug holes one by one." He kissed her brow. She smelled of sweat and ash, but he would have her no other way. When she left, Ned faced Varys. "You swore the guild was loyal." The eunuch lifted delicate hands. "I swore they feared you, my lord. Fear breeds compliance, until a stronger fear whispers in the dark." He sighed. "If Littlefinger buys jars, he plots calamity." "Find him," Ned growled. "Alive." Outside the city walls, a curl of new tents rose on the western bank where Tywin's host regrouped. Banner poles lined the ridge like reeds. Crimson lion, gold lion, Twin-tailed lion of Lannisport, flayed man of Bolton strangely among them. Roose must have ridden swiftly from the Trident. North banners, in a Westerlands camp. Ominous. In Tywin's command pavilion, Stannis sat at a war table covered by fresh parchment. Tywin poured wine with steady hand, offered it. Stannis waved it away. Kevan Lannister and Mathis Rowan listened in gloom. Maps sprawled. Supply lines ravaged by wildfire. Siege calculations rendered moot. Yet Tywin had already pivoted to politics. Harrenhal, he said, tapping the ruin's black outline, offers no comfort. Rats nest in its walls. Summer heat bakes those towers like ovens. Stannis' jaw bunched. Symbolically apt. The realm was forged there. New. Kevan cleared throat. And many remember the lords roasted alive. Stannis' gaze was iron. All the more reason to deliberate soberly. Every lord will smell char in those halls. Caution will guide their votes. Tywin studied him. So you trust fear to deliver you a crown? I trust law, Stannis snapped, then reined temper. And if not law, then numbers. The Reach may withhold support, but the North and Stormlands will weigh heavy. Tywin swirled wine. The North stands behind, Stark, true. Yet his banners remain at home. And the Boltons, he smiled thinly, have ridden to my side. They are but one. The Manderleys stand opposed. Tywin's shrug was almost lazy. Coin can shift currents. Stannis' knuckles whitened on sword pommel. I did not seek alliance with you, Lord Tywin. Only a truce, which I granted. Now I speak as your host. Do not march to council blind. He flicked fingers. A Lannister scribe unfurled another parchment. Letters bearing seals of Frey, Florent, Hightower. Some lords court alternatives. Renley, Edmure. Even that pup robs Stark. If you wish to solidify claim, you will need the city. Indemerstosan. Stannis' shadow flickered in torchlight. I will not sack my brother's capital. Then hold it, Tywin said smoothly. When council opens, you arrive from a seat of rightful power. Not as beggar carriage on some muddy causeway. Stannis said nothing for a long moment. Finally, I gave Stark 3 weeks. I keep my word. Tywin inclined head, as if teacher pleased by pupil. Yes, you say. Yet one counsel more. Chained the wolf. He unleashed Wildfire once. Who knows what else he'll risk? Stannis' eyes narrowed. He risked to save small folk. Judge results, not rumor. Tywin's smile did not warm. In war, results matter. Yet so do tales whispered at table. I leave you to weigh both. Within King's Landing, word spread of mysterious disappearances. Merchants with coin purses drained to nothing. Sailors found strangled, tongues removed. Varys' spies brought hints. Shadow men in hooded yellow, carrying flagons marked by a weeping eye. A Dornish symbol? Or cat's paws of the faceless men? Each rumor deepened unease. At dusk, Davos returned, caked in cellar dust but unmarred. The thieves had been seized, the jars recovered, all but one broken when a cart overturned. By miracle, the flames quenched in damp straw. Varys reported Littlefinger gone upriver with 2 vast skiffs before dawn. Destination House Tully Lands or perhaps Gulltown. Ned dispatched ravens, but felt the net loosening. He met Barristan on the riverside ramp, where barges waited beneath tarpaulin. Night crept purple. Lanterns cast soft halos on the water. Ready, Barristan said. Crews sworn. Gods keep them. Ned surveyed the deck. Each crate tied with wet rawhide, every lantern shielded. One spark could raise a second apocalypse. He exhaled, slow. Let us see it done. They rowed aboard the foremost barge as it pushed from the quay. Moonrise painted the river pewter. On shore, citizens gathered, silent, watching black silhouettes slide seaward. A funeral procession for danger. Some wept softly, some muttered prayers. A woman threw a garland of river blossoms onto the current, petals glowing faint and green where they drifted near jar glare. Ned felt an ache of guilt and gratitude, as though each flower forgave him anew. Mid-river, a current eddy jostled the lead barge. Crates creaked. Ned's heart clenched until ropes tautened. Barristan grunted humorless. I should rather face 3 Dothraki Khalasars. Ned managed a thin smile. At least the Dothraki end matters quickly. The barge captain signaled with shutter lantern. Trailing vessels answered. 2 leagues passed like an hourglass drained of sand reputations. At last they reached the appointed shoal where the river bottom dipped steep and soft. Anchors dropped. Sailors redoubling knots around crate lids, hammered in iron spikes, then rolled each bundle overboard with grunts. The jars slipped beneath in dim gloops of phosphorescence, before the dark swallowed them. When the last crate vanished, Ned closed eyes. The night seemed to inhale. Nothing erupted. He sagged. Barristan clasped his shoulder. Wind shifted cool, off the bay, clearing the lingering tang of lime and brimstone. Ned tasted only salt. Cersei Lannister crouched in a forgotten loft above the street of silk, watching torchlight flicker through cracks. 2 handmaidens dozed on a tattered mattress. Qyburn, the ex-maester, brewed tincture at a brazier that cast his shadow monstrous. Tickling in Cersei's lungs forced her to press linen over mouth to muffle cough. Smoke from wildfire fields had seeped even here. Her throat raw. Joffrey crouched by the trapdoor, peering at dark lane below, clutching a crossbow far too large for his thin arm. His face bore grime streaks, but his eyes glinted with feverish excitement. Mother. Soldiers again. Gold cloaks? She rasped. He shook head. Northmen. Black and gray. His tongue shaped insult. Cersei closed lids. Northmen had quartered district after district in disciplined patrols, wary but respectful. She despised them not for cruelty, that belonged to Lannisters, but for the omen of power they carried. Ned Stark's face haunted her more than Wildfire. He walked the city like a grave marker to her ambitions. Qyburn appeared beside her, proffering a cup. Willow bark steeped in honey. Soot scratches the bronchial tubes. She drank, bitter sweetness sliding down rawness. How fair our messengers. 2 reached Lord Baelish. 1 never returned. The gulls speak of coins flown to the Eyrie. Cersei cursed. And the Sel sails? Still, anchored in the narrow sea. But the captain demands double after the fires. He smiled thin. Fear sets its own price. She rose to pace. We cannot drift forever. I will not kneel before Stannis, or that icy wolf. Qyburn's gaze flickered to Joffrey. The boy grows restless. Restless princes make poor fugitives. I should have stayed and slit Stark's throat on the throne steps, she muttered. Memory flashed. The Iron Throne Room awash in green flame. Jaime lost behind a wall of heat. Screams. She suppressed a shiver. Tonight, we move. Qyburn's brow arched. Where, your grace? Out the Roserad. Into the Reach. Mace Tyrell may parade loyalty to the wolf now, but his gold bleeds honor easily. She gripped a rafter as another cough doubled her. Or the Dornish. Illyria's sand whispers vengeance, yet vengeance may align with ours. Qyburn inclined head. I know smugglers who run Arbor Wine south. Passage can be bought. Do it. She looked at Joffrey. My lion, you must be brave. He raised chin. I will flay them all when we return, mother. Her smile was thin as parchment. Yes, my sweet. You will. Steady. 3 days later, the royal barge Fury moored at a newly built timber pier near the mouth of the Blackwater. Ned, Barristan, and a small retinue boarded at dawn. The deck smelled tar and oiled rope. Stannis stood at the prow, arms clasped, expression carved from granite. Beside him Davos conversed with Maester Cresson. When Ned approached, Stannis nodded terse greeting. Lord Stark. The council convenes 6 days hence. We sail by noon for Duskendale, then ride. Ned surveyed supplies stacked near hatchway. Grain, casks of fresh water, crates marked with Storm's end sigil. You travel light. Speed wins crowns, Stannis said. Tywin remains camped, but I trust him less than Wildfire. I mean to reach Harrenhal first. Barristan spoke. Lord Tywin may move fast if houses Frey and Bolton ride with him. Stannis' jaw worked. Bolton betrayed his liege. He cut glance at Ned. You must hold him to account when this is over. I will, Ned said. Another debt in the ledger. Stannis stepped aside, gestured to cabin. We speak in private. When Barristan moved to follow, Stannis raised hand. Alone. Ned entered the cramped cabin. Stannis closed door, leaned against bulkhead. The river lapped hull. I appreciate your dispatching the Wildfire, the king said. Yet Tywin's whisperers sow rumors you scheme to crown your son. Ned felt anger stir. Lies. I know, but perception frames truth. I must have northern banners at Harrenhal. Summon them now. Ravens flew 2 nights past, Ned replied. It will take more than 6 days. Then send heirs to pledge in person. Robb Stark must ride. Shock lanced Ned. Robb, scarcely more than boy, leaving Winterfell unguarded with Ironborn restless. Winter is near. My son must keep the north. Without northern swords I stand alone, Stannis said. If Tywin bribes the Freys, he may claim river crossing. I need you. Ned weighed risk. Each choice seemed blade-edged. I can summon Greatjon Umber and Golbart Glover with smaller hosts. Enough to show presence. Stannis pressed lips thin, but nodded. Do it, and speak before the council pledging me. Any hint of doubt will turn the veil and trident. He opened door. Come. We have course to set. Evening bathed the city in amber glow as the fury cast off. Arya and Sansa stood on a pier amid other well-wishers, flanked by Tamard and Winterfell guards. The girls waved. Barristan saluted them from deck. Wind filled sails. Ned remained aft, watching sprawl of King's Landing recede until the Red Keep's towers stood like burnt fingers against the sky. Smoke still smudged the horizon, but river breeze carried fresher scents now. Pine from Crownland's woods, tang of open sea. He felt weight loosen, though not fall. Night fell clear and chill. Ned paced the deck, mind busy with letters he would write come dawn. To Robb, to the Umbers, to Howland Reed at Greywater Watch, urging caution yet calling banners south. He thought of Jon beyond the wall, wondered what snows he trod while his siblings walked fire. He prayed the boy never learned of Green Flame's horror. Near midnight, Davos joined him at rail. Stars scattered bright above. The smuggler offered a skin in a sour red. Ned drank sparingly. His grace is iron inside, yet he worries, Davos said. Every rumor is an arrow seeking chink. Rumors slay as keen as swords, Ned replied. We must forge truth into armor. Davos nodded to horizon where the ghost of the city's glow shimmered. Stark and Seaworth and Selmy. Odd crew, eh? But good men make fine sailors. Ned smiled. First true one in days. Let us hope good men also make good kings. Or raise them, Davos said. They watched river lights fade. Out on the water, phosphorescent ripples shone where the barges had sunk their deadly loads, now buried beneath silt and current. Ned wondered if centuries hence fishermen might dredge ajar and marvel at Green Demon caught inside. He whispered silent vow. Should he live to see peace, he'd send divers to recover every last one. Back in the Red Keep, Varys walked silent corridors, spider to his own web, feet bare. He paused before the sealed outer door of Grandmaster Pycelle's apartments, now heavily guarded, its occupant under suspicion of secreting Wildfire formulas to Littlefinger weeks earlier. Voices drifted, Pycelle's groans, a novice maester humming lullaby of the faith. Varys moved on. He entered a hidden passage behind the throne room dais. There, in a dusty alcove, sat a man cloaked in mottled gray, hood shadowing face. Only the glint of pale eyes showed. Report, Varys breathed. Black sails on the horizon, the man rasped. 10, perhaps 12. Colors stripped. Sell sails from the stepstones? Or Ironborn? The hood bobbed. Ravens speak of Balon Greyjoy's galleys putting to sea under guise of trade. They steer south. Varys' fingers fluttered. King's Landing cannot face new foe. Inform Lord Stark's castellan. Have watch doubled along the Blackwater mouth." The man hesitated. "And? The Queen?" Varys sighed. "Cersei must remain free a while yet. Her absence pricks Tywin. But ensure she heads west, not south, to ally with Ironborn." He touched the spy's sleeve. "Silk nets catch more fish than iron. No blades unless needed." The hooded figure melted into shadows. Varys leaned against wall, a rare tremor flickering his eye. So many threads now. Wildfire thieves, sell sales, queens in exile, lords muttering, Ironborn raiders, raven wings, heavy with rumors. The realm balanced upon a hair. He whispered to darkness. For the realm, only the realm. Then he drifted on. Duskendale lay shrouded by mist, when the Fury anchored offshore 2 dawns later. Stannis rode inland with Davos and 20 guards. Ned remained in town square to greet Umber riders who arrived dusty, led by Great Jon's second son Jonas, a bare-browed youth with reddish beard. He brought 200 spears and a letter pledging the Great Jon's voice for Stannis. Glover men followed, under Lady Gillian, her brow creased with worry for her infants left at Deepwood, but she rode regardless. Ned clasped her arm in gratitude. Messages came too. Robb assembling levy at Moat Cailin, Manderless marching down the White Knife, Reeds sending Crannogman scullers through the neck. Heartstrings tugged, his cub groaned to lord in his absence. They tarried one night. Ned penned instructions to Winterfell's master of horse, to close passes, guard the wall's supply lines. He scribbled a last note to Catelyn, though he knew ravens seldom reached the Riverlands now choked by war. He sealed it with Direwolf and prayed. On the march south, roads clogged with refugees heading opposite direction. They clutched bundles of charred keepsakes, told tales of green demon storms and white-cloaked butchers. Some blessed Ned, others spat, convinced the hand's sorcery spawned the blaze. He accepted both with equal humility. Along the King's Road, the company overtook wagons of Reach merchants carrying grain to capital. Garland Tyrell, riding with Ned now, ordered drivers to deliver half to smallfolk camps at Broken Branch Crossing. Hunger's grip eased a fraction. Nights, men gathered around low fires and told subdued stories. Of Renly's uncertain stirrings in Highgarden, of Euron Greyjoy's rumored return, of dragons hatching in far Ashai, nonsense that still chilled spines. 5 days' march brought them to Harrenhal. Black, blasted, immense. Its towers clawed sky like broken ribs. Mist rolled from the god's eye, swathing base walls in ghost veils. Within the courtyard, Tywin's engineers already erected pavilions. Frey banners snapped, pink and blue. Bolton Flayedman flapped beside Lion Banner, most unsettling to northern eyes. But the Wolf of Stark, the Trident of Tully, the Kraken of Greyjoy, the Kraken with Crowned Stag of Baratheon, and myriad lesser sigils soon joined. They were first to the Great Hall, roof charred, walls weeping rust. Ned entered beneath arch where, legend said, Harren had burned as Egon's dragonfire melted tower stones. Echoes rang as if ghosts cheered the living's folly. Stannis strode at his side. Tywin awaited, robed in crimson velvet, expression unreadable. "Welcome," he said, voice carrying. "May fire have finished forging this hall so it may host peace." Ned halted beneath a fractured window, its stained glass long fallen. Peace stands upon 4 pillars: truth, mercy, justice, and memory. Let us build. Tywin's gaze flicked to a recess where Roose Bolton watched, pale eyes hooded. Beyond him, Walder Frey's sons clustered like vultures, whispering. On dais steps stood a trio of airy knights, Lady Lysa's envoys. At room's center, carpenters railed tiers, seats for each lord. The grand assembly would meet with dawn. Stannis surveyed array. "We gather at sunset for preliminary oaths. Attendance mandatory." Tywin bowed fractionally. House Lannister obeys the summons. The hosts dispersed to quarters. Ned found chambers high in Kingspire Tower. Window slit overlooking lake, where still water mirrored broken moons. He sat at rough table, lit single tallow candle. Unfolded parchment. Minutes stretched into hours. Dandel guttered. Footsteps approached. Barristan entered, bearing a slim ledger. "Names for tomorrow's roll," he said. His tone quavered, odd for the old knight. He laid the ledger down. Ned thumbed pages until his eyes locked on one entry. Prince Viserys Targaryen. Dragon Lord, claimant. Ned stared. "Viserys is dead." "Apparently not," Barristan murmured. "A Cell galley docked at Saltpans flies his standard. He arrives on morrow's tide." A chill danced Ned's spine. He remembered golden-haired boy glimpsed at court during Robert's rebellion, exiled across sea. If Viserys survived, with what army? Dothraki once, but Robert's spies claimed him slain by molten gold. Lies it seemed. Could Tywin or Littlefinger have fetched him a stalking horse? Ned closed the ledger. "We verify it at first light." He rose, staring at night-blank lake. "Pray this hall holds no more dragonfire." Down in Flea Bottom area prowled tavern shadows with Gendry, an armorer's apprentice she'd befriended while seeking news of Night's Watch recruits. Smoke from cookfires masked stench of refuse. They heard dockworkers boast Ironborn thralls landed near Cracklaw Point. Others claimed a shadow assassin slew the High Septon. Panic whispered like rats. Arya turned to Gendry. "If Dragon Prince comes, small folk will riot." Gendry shrugged powerful shoulders. "Small folk always riot. Then someone pays to rebuild walls, and we hammer new nails." He spat. "Makes little difference to us." Arya touched needle at her hip. "It will, if war reaches every door." She thought of Sansa's tales of court. War did reach doors. Burned them down with green fire. Dawn of Council Day broke blood red. Mist rolled from lake, swallowing lower yard. Horns echoed through towers. Lords streamed into Great Hall, cloaks snapping. Northern lords arrived first. Glover, Umber, Manderley's nephew Sir Donal. Then river lords under Edmure Tully, fatigued from siege lines. Vale knights, Dornish envoys in sunburst silks. Ironborn captains scanning walls as if already weighing stone for siege. Seats filled concentric tiers. In ruinous nave, a raised dais held 5 thrones. Makeshift chairs cobbled of oak and iron. At center sat the Lord Regent's seat, yet Ned refused it. He stood behind Stannis, who occupied chair painted in stag black. To his right sat Tywin beneath sculpted lion. To his left sat Edmure Tully representing River Run. 2 chairs remained empty. A herald's call cut murmur. Renley of House Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End and High Lord of the Rainwood. Renley entered resplendent in green armor, flanked by a dozen rainbow guard. Cheers erupted from Reachmen and younger knights dazzled by his smile. He mounted dais, took seat carved with crowned stag over rose vines. His own device. Stannis' jaw clenched. Tywin's gaze narrowed, scarcely hiding pleasure at division. Herald sounded again, voice quavering. "Viserys of House Targaryen, firstborn son of Aerys, rightful king of the Andals." The words choked off as figures strode through arch. But this was no golden-haired princeling. He wore silver hair cropped short, purple eyes wary, scar across brow. He walked, bearing no crown but a dragon-headed staff. At his flank paced a lithe girl with hair moon-white and eyes of molten amethyst. Daenerys Stormborn. Ned inhaled sharp. Rumors had said she perished with bloodied stallions. Gasps rippled. The dragon throne had seemed myth. Now 2 descendants stood before charred pillars of Aegon's conquest. Daenerys raised chin with quiet grace. Viserys bowed stiff to assembly, but his eyes burned with hunger. He addressed Hall. "Lords of Westeros, I come not as conqueror, but as son returning to father's house. I claim this council in name of Targaryen blood, shed unjustly by usurpers. Let law judge with open eyes." Murmurs swelled to roar. Some hissed usurper. Others cheered dragon returns. Ned regarded Tywin. The Lion Lord's mask revealed nothing, yet a glint betrayed calculation. Stannis' voice cracked like drawn sword. "Council recognizes only legitimate claimants. Present proof, you are who you say." Viserys gestured. From behind stepped Barristan Selmy's former squire, now a Targaryen loyalist, bearing a chest. Viserys lifted parchment. A marriage contract between Rhaegar and Elia, vouched by High Septon's broken seal, naming issue legitimate. Another scroll, testifying Viserys' birth at Dragonstone, with witness seals of Merryweather and Celtigar. Daenerys unfurled Aegon's sword Blackfire, replica or true, none knew. But its Valyrian ripples glimmered ominous. Lords whispered. Tyrell retinue shifted allegiance and eyes. Freys exchanged furtive looks. Bolton eyes glittered, scenting chaos. Renley stood, smile flickering. Papers and swords from across the sea do not a king make. The realm needs living strength, not ghosts. Stannis rose. The realm needs law. Robert named me heir. Viserys laughed, high and brittle. Robert named himself king by murder. The hall erupted into overlapping shouts. Tywin raised palm. Silence rolled like thunderclap. His voice low but lethal. Let us not drown in past grievances. This council shall vote. Each great house one voice. Minor houses grouped by region. The King's Guard and Faith hold observing seats. Mednimotseer. Ned stepped forward. We must swear oath to accept verdict peaceably. Any who rejects outcome invites all others to arms. Most heads nodded. Renly hesitated, but under Mace Tyrell's sharp elbow, inclined. Viserys and Daenerys shared glance. She nodded, gentle but firm. Tywin's lips curved. Wolf had shepherded flock to pen, now lion might feast. The herald intoned oaths, ancient phrases carved after Andal conquest. Lords swore before gods old and new. When Tywin repeated words, Ned watched his eyes. Steely but unflinching. Yet oathbreakers wear many masks. Voting rules were hashed. Stones cast into urns marked by sigil, counted by neutral septons and maesters. 3 rounds if needed. Evening would declare winner. As deliberations opened, Ned pulled Stannis and Davos aside. Divide your adversaries, court riverlords, pledge grain security to reach. He eyed Viserys across hall, now circled by Dornish envoys. And above all, treat the dragons with courtesy. If they lose, they must not seek fire and blood. Stannis' mouth twisted. Targaryen madness remains legend. Legends can be tamed, Davos offered, hands rough at belt. Talk of peaceful return may sway small folk if you share throne. Stannis' eyes widened, aghast. Share? With dragon whelp? Robert planned to wed their sister to me once, Ned said. Unity may mend realm quicker than swords. Stannis strode off bristling. Ned exhaled. Far across, Daenerys caught his gaze unexpectedly. She inclined head. Respect or curiosity he could not tell. Her brother argued with Qarth merchant. She seemed alone despite crowd. Ned threaded through throng until he reached her guard, a hulking Dothraki bearing Arak, shortened at hilt. I seek parley, Ned told him. The man studied, then parted stance. Daenerys regarded him calmly. Lord Eddard Stark, my lady. He bowed. I once failed your house when my friend slew your father. Yet times change. I would know your mind before this council shapes destiny. Her eyes were ancient violet pools. I was a child in exile. All I knew of Westeros were tales of my brother's crown of molten gold. But I have seen cities fall and rise again. I do not crave revenge so much as home. She glanced at Stannis across hall. But my brother listens to those who speak of fire. Ned spoke softly. Fire here cost many innocents days ago. If your bloodline holds dragons. She smiled faint. Eggs, perhaps. No hatchlings. Only stories. Stories spark armies, Ned said. Will you vow peace if council chooses otherwise? Her gaze turned inward. If the realm denies me heritage, I will seek life elsewhere. I have grown weary of war. She stood. But Viserys. He holds the old hurt close. You must guard against that. I will try, Ned said. She extended hand. He clasped it. For an instant, the city's smoke seemed to clear from his lungs. Then heralds called lords to seats. Debates would commence. She withdrew. Hours bled. Speeches soared. Accusations flew. Tyrells praised Renly's youth and charm, decried dour Stannis. Manderlys upheld Stannis, quoting canon law. Dornish Prince Doran's envoy urged return of dragon blood, a chance to rectify old grievances. Freys hedged. Ironborn threatened to choose no king. Amid clamor, Ned found himself calming voices, bridging gaps. Wolf made shepherd. Between sessions he caught glimpses of Littlefinger arrived in secret, whispering to Frey sons, coin purses clinking. Varys hovered. At dusk, the first ballot. Dos. Stones clacked into urns. Weight heavy. Maester Gorman tallied. Result. Renly 12, Stannis 10, Viserys 8, abstained 2 Atara. Gasps, Dadewar. No majority. Second ballot. Renly 12, Stannis 11, Viserys 9. Daenerys rose, whispered in brother's ear. He bristled. Third ballot would decide or force negotiation. Ned retired to side chamber with Stannis, Davos, Tyrell envoys, Glover, Edmure Dog. They hammered terms. Storm lands to hold Myrish steppe trade, reach to secure granaries, North autonomy. Tyrells demanded Queen Margaery to wed King. Stannis balked but offered Shireen's match to Willis Tyrell. Bargain nearly sealed when horns blared across courtyard. Alarms. Ned strode to balcony. Night-blanketed lake. Flames now flickered along shore where ships burned. Black sails. Ironborn? Bar banners crimson with golden kraken. Urins. Cannon-like thuds boomed. Scorpions flinging pots of pitch. Barristan sprinted in, sword drawn. Ironborn raiders strike camp stores and docks. Fire again, but not green. Now. Stannis cursed. We must defend. Council suspends. Tywin was already summoning guards. Renly buckled sword. Eager grin. Viserys withdrew, whispering to sell sails. Ned turned to Stannis. We ride together. Show realm unity and defense. Stannis' nod was grim. They clattered downstairs. Outside, chaos. Raiders swarmed piers, setting supply barges ablaze. Northern bowmen loosed from walls. Flaming arrows streaked night. Ned mounted, led charge across drawbridge. Ironborn shouted battle song. Axes flashing under torchlight. Ned met first axeman with ice, a cleaving blow shoulder to breastbone. Blood sprayed. He pivoted, parried spiked hammer, kicked raider into the lake. Stannis barged through, great sword Inglis battering shields. Barristan danced like lightning. On far dock, Greybeard with black eye patch, Euron, threw a pot of burning oil. It smashed, fire licking rigging. Garland Tyrell vaulted gap, drove spear through pirate's thigh, pinned him screaming. Renly's rainbow guard cut swath, bright cloaks swirling. Ironborn morale faltered. Horn blasts from their ships signaled retreat. Dories shoved off laden with loot sacks. Northmen pursued waist deep, but Tywin's order rang. Hold! Too many risk drowning. Arrows harried enemies until darkness swallowed sails. Torches revealed wreckage. 40 raiders slain. Half as many defenders. Fires doused by bucket lines. Ned knelt by a fallen Umberlad, gasping last breaths. He pressed cloth, whispered comfort. The boy smiled, whispered, "For the north," and went still. Dawn found camp weary but united. Lion treating wolf wounds, stag sharing bread with rose. Ironborn raid had sealed more alliances than speeches. Lords gathered again, soot on armor, but hearts aflame with shared victory. Third ballot stones dropped heavy. Maester Gorman counted slow, voice echoing. Stannis 14, Renly 12, Viserys 6, abstain 0 tar. Gasps, murmurs. Majority reached. Ned watched Tyrell faces, mixed, but Willis mostly calm. Renly's shoulders sag. Then he forced grin, clapped brother's arm. Stormland lords follow King Stannis, he proclaimed, though eyes glittered. Viserys leaned toward Daenerys, anger coiled. She touched his arm. Plea or warning? Stannis ascended dais. Maesters placed crown forged of black iron and red jasper upon his brow. He spoke. I accept charge to heal realm. All oaths bound anew. He turned to Ned. Rise, Lord Stark, as hand of the king. Hall thundered applause. Ned felt weight settle like yoke, yet pride stirred. He knelt, rose. In crowd, Arya beamed from balcony. Sansa wiped tears. Barristan saluted. Tywin bowed stiffly, eyes shards of ice, but he bowed. But as cheers rose, Viserys slipped from Hall, cell sails in tow. Daenerys lingered, gaze meeting Ned's with sorrow. She turned and followed brother. High above, ravens exploded from rookery, wings black against sunrise, carrying news of new king across 7 kingdoms. Ned prayed it would arrive before next conflagration. On the ramparts that night, Ned stood beside Stannis gazing over tents lit by lanterns. Fires of camaraderie flickered. Songs rose. Yet far off, red glow lingered where Ironborn ships still smoldered. Stannis spoke low. Victory tastes ash. The dragons will not yield. We will court them, Ned replied. Offer seat on council. Lands of Dragonstone returned. Stannis' mouth twisted. If they refuse, we remain vigilant and merciful. Kill 1 dragonborn, you birth 1,000 rebels. Stannis considered. You taught me mercy yesterday. I will not forget. But you must teach Viserys, not me. Ned watched moon ripple on lake. We will try. The realm deserves more dawns than nights. Stannis nodded, then surprised Ned by placing hand on his shoulder. 7 help us both. The wind carried scent of wet ash and budding willow. Somewhere, a wolf howled. Perhaps only Ned's memory. But he fancied the voice answered from the north, carried on cold air, promising that whatever fires men lit, winter's heart yet beat strong. In distant sky, a single star streaked white across velvet. Falling or rising, who could say? Ned followed its arc until it vanished into dawn's first pale blush. And in that quiet moment, he believed the realm might yet be forged anew, not by Wildfire's cruel heat, but by steadier flame, the slow, stubborn burning of honor. Nyawana. Nish Nanshi, Wanid Brosin Kav. Cold air seeped through the arrow slits of Kingspire Tower, carrying scents of damp stone, forged smoke, and the faint iron tang of blood that never quite faded from Harrenhal's walls. Ned Stark paced the length of his candle-lit chamber, cloak swirling behind him like a shadow grown restless. Maps littered the trestle table, inked lines of march, raven routes, estimates of grain, sheep, and levymen. Yet his eyes kept drifting to the high mullioned window, where dawn's first ashen glow silvered the mists uncoiling over the god's eye. Somewhere beyond that gray sheet, Viserys Targaryen and his sister were on the move, hunted by a realm that could not afford another spark flung upon kindling. A log snapped in the hearth, scattering embers. Ned paused, closing calloused fingers around the wolf-head pommel of ice. For years, the sword had felt an extension of his arm. Now its presence seemed reminder and warning both. He stared at the rippling Valyrian patterns, recalling the wild green bloom of wildfire on the Blackwater. The wailing of men burned alive, and all the choices that had led him here. Hand of the king, and chained to an iron throne of compromises. Booth heels sounded in the corridor. Barristan Selmy entered, helm tucked beneath arm. My lord, the northern riders gather in the outer yard. They await your word to pursue the dragonlings. Ned let the title wash past. How many ride? Glover brought 60 light horse, Umber 50. Sir Donald Manderley offers mounted crossbowmen, keeps foot for camp guard. Barristan's pale eyes flicked to the window. Dawn breaks soon. The longer we tarry, the colder their trail. Ned nodded. He felt the tower itself breathe old ghosts, Harren and his sons crying in molten iron, the shrieks of Danelle Lothston's captives. Pursuing more fireborn heirs across these cursed lands, felt too close to those echoing tales. Yet if Viserys reached allies, Dorne, the free cities, the realm would bleed again. I'll address the men. He followed Barristan down the spiral stairs to the yard. Torches guttered in nipping breeze. Horses stamped, steaming breath. Northern riders waited beneath banners limp in dawn's hush. Sansa and Arya stood near the gatehouse with Tomard, eyes swollen from sleepless dark. Arya's hand gripped Needle's hilt. Sansa clasped a bundle of fresh-baked oatcakes she had bullied the castle cooks into preparing for the company. Ned's heart ached. He swung up onto his gray gelding, raised voice so it carried against damp stone. Men of the north, Dragonstone, and Crownlands, we ride at light's first crest. The Dragon Prince flees by way of Lord Harroway's town. His Cell galley was seen upriver. We mean to halt him before he finds harbor, alive if we may, lest the realm birth fresh war. If he draws steel, answer in kind. But remember, his sister Daenerys is no warrior. She will be treated as guest, not spoils. Nan. A rumble of assent. Greyjohn's son Jonas barked a laugh. If the princeling pisses himself, we'll mop him dry, eh, lads? Laughter eased tension. Ned nodded to the gatekeep. Chains rattled. Portcullis groaned. Hooves clattered over drawbridge slick with dew. Mist swallowed them 2 lengths out. Barristan rode at Ned's right, cloak fringed by ribbons of New King's black andred. To left loped Garland Tyrell in muted green, eyes narrowed against chill. Davos Seaworth had begged to sail north on the God's Eye to intercept the Cell vessel. And as Ned heard distant horn blasts across water, he guessed the Onion Knight already cut through fog with craft and quiet fervor. The road north to Maidenpool snaked through willows and half-flooded meadows where ghost-white dew smoked. Ned kept pace steady, trusting scouts ahead to find sign. Dawn brightened from pewter to washed gold. Birds began tentative songs. One by one, riders lifted voices too, trading bawdy jokes that made younger pages blush. By mid-morning, they reached a hillock overlooking a low hamlet, Little Dun Fort, and spied churned mud, trampled grass, fresh tracks leading east. Scouts reported 10 sword horse with 2 covered wagons. Banners none. Pace hurried. 2 knights gone, a tracker said, squatting by hoofprint. Prince's party, I'd wager. Ned ordered the column east across marshy flats toward Lord Harroway's. Midday sun burned mist to rags. They passed fishermen's huts, scorched by raiders. Ironborn work from recent foray. Bodies long buried but blackened beams still leaned like charred ribs. The sight stoked northern hatred. Ned felt it in the silence that fell. Past dead hamlet, they found first corpse. A sail in red salt cloak, arrow through eye, then a wagon's shattered wheel, splintered chest, spilled oranges staining grass blood orange. Stripped by small folk? Garland wondered. Barristan knelt, sniffed shaft fletching. Gray goose feather with silver capped out. Not small folk. Ned's gut tightened. Bolton flight feathers. He rose. Roose sent flares south of the lake. They hunt dragon fledglings too, but for Tywin's coin. Garland swore. Bolton men flay the truth from quarry. Ned spurred on. Afternoon light wavered through dust plumes. Pace quickened. At a willow-skirted ford they overtook survivors. 3 Lyseni sailors crawling beside overturned wagon. One had leg bent wrong. Another bled from ear. They babbled of pale men in flayed skins. Ambush at Riverbend, the prince taken. Ned dispatched a healer but pressed on. By sunset, they crested ridge above Lord Harroway's and saw smoke curling from dockyard. Down sprawled like spilled dice. Wooden palisade, stone quay, cluster of inns. But fires dotted streets, and small folk fled along River Road. Ironborn sails still smoldered near Harrenhal. Now Bolton banners shed fresh fire here. Ned drew rein. We ride straight to docks, cut them off. Glover and Umber shields tightened. War horns sounded. They charged downhill. Hooves, drumming dry soil. Palisade gate already broken. Northern riders swept through, columns splitting. Crossbow bolts hissed. One grazed Ned's pauldron with hot shock, another thudded Garland's shield. They broke into Market Square where flayed man banners drooped from inn balcony. Bolton men, ashen-haired, quiet-eyed, held line around prisoners, Viserys bound to a cart. Daenerys seated behind, wrists tied but head high. Bastard of Bolton, Ramsay Snow, lounged in saddle playing with curved skinning blade. His smile cut sharper than steel. Riders fanned out. Bolton archers on rooftop aimed, but Ned's vanguard slammed into their flank with brutal efficiency. Umber axes cleaving, Glover's spears bristling. Ned guided gelding toward cart. Ramsay spurred to intercept, blade twirling. He drew near, grinning. Stark honor chases dragon pups. Ned's answer was swing of ice. Ramsay parried with shocking skill, steel shrieking. He flicked wrist, blade kissing Ned's forearm. Blood warm. Ned countered, hooking Ramsay's reins, yanking. The bastard tumbled. Before he righted, Barristan's destrier reared, hooves crashing onto Ramsay's chest. Bones cracked like frost-rimed sticks. Ramsay gasped, shock wide in eyes, then fell still. Bolton morale crumpled. Arrows ceased. Northern riders swept roofline, archers fled or died. Ned leapt from saddle, sliced Daenerys' bonds. She blinked gratitude but turned first to her brother. Viserys trembled, blood at temple, fear and rage swirling. Ned had cut his ties and raised hand for silence. But in that hush, a Bolton archer hidden in attic loosed desperate arrow, meant for Ned, but ice deflected. The shaft skittered across cart plank, lodged in Viserys' side. Prince yelped, collapsed. Daenerys cried out, cradled him. Ned's roar sent Glover men storming attic. Screams ended Archer's life. They carried Viserys into inn. Candle smoke mingled with reek of sour wine. Maester Lewin, breathless from rear column, arrived, inspected wound. Not mortal, missed lung. He poured boiling wine to cleanse. Viserys shrieked curses at Ned, at Stannis, at Realm's treachery. Daenerys held his hand, murmuring Valyrian lullabies. Lewin stitched. Outside, riders cleared streets, posted guards. Garland Tyrell joined Ned at doorway. Bolton treachery unmasked, said the knight. Their lord cannot hide now. Roos's mask seldom slips, Ned replied. Yet flaying the dragon heir will stain even his sly name. They walked quay. Davos River galley bobbed tied to piling, decks strewn with dead cell sails from earlier skirmish. Proof that Greyjoy raiders on lake had allies below. Davos strode over, wiping blade. Prince safe, wounded. Ned clasped his forearm. Your arrow fletching saved him. Bolton archers use silver caps, ours white. Davos grimaced. Wish I'd loosed sooner. They convened in town hall, ramshackle, converted to field court. There Ned questioned captured Boltons. Tongues loosened by promise of northern justice. Roose had bargained with Tywin, deliver Targaryens alive, receive half Riverlands and Harrenhal's title. Ramsay commanded, ordered no flaying until safe camp west of Trident, but relish for cruelty birthed accidents. We only meant to cut Prince a little, one archer whined. Barristan's gauntlet silenced him. That night, buyers lit along quay for warmth. Daenerys exited inn, cloak round shoulders, hair moonlit. She approached Ned by waterline. My brother will live, she said. He wishes to speak with you. When pain lessens. Ned nodded. Relieved. I regret this blood. She looked at smoky stars. Blood follows Viserys like a hound. He feeds it with pride. A pause. Yet you saved him. I will not forget. Wind ruffled cloak. Ka. She hugged it tighter. Ned sensed her tremor. Not from cold. You have known loss, he offered. She gave fragile laugh. I was born in storm. You call me Stormborn. My life has been loss and flight. But dragons live by fire and flight both. She met his eyes. Does your realm leave room for wings? He chose words. We cannot erase the past, but we may forge new oaths. If the council crowns Stannis, he must heal, not destroy. Your bloodline still has place. If you join, not claim. She considered, gaze distant. I once dreamed only of throne. Now I dream of children safe, cities just. She stared at reflection of torchlight on water. We will talk again when Viserys' fury cools." She walked away. Ned watched until shadows swallowed her. At Harrenhal, Roose Bolton entered Tywin's pavilion, flanked by silent dreadguards. He bowed, voice soft. "Regret binds my tongue, my lord. My bastard exceeded charge." "Estall." Tywin considered amber wine. "Exceed?" The task was retrieval, not discovery by Stark's hounds. Roose's eyes shimmered pale. "One arrow misloosed. Circumstance, not intent. Intent matters little in failure," Tywin said. "Stark now grips dragon heirs and your son lies broken." Roose's eyelids flickered. "No grief. A lesson in restraint then. But still value remains. Bolton levies hold moat roads. Leverage may yet be found." Tywin set goblet aside. "Deliver me Harrenhal's keys within a moon, or I will hang your sigil flayed upon these walls." Roose bowed deeper. "As you command." He withdrew. In corridor outside, Ramsay's maester waited with raven scroll. "Bastard wounded, captive." Roose slit message, unreadable gaze. He whispered to guard. "Send quiet wolves south. The bastard's skin must not adorn Stark banners." 2 days later, Ned's column returned to Harrenhal with prisoners and wounded. Council reconvened in shattered throne room now hung with new banners. Stag crowned, wolf rampant, rose entwined. Tywin absent. "Fever claimed him," said Kevin. Renley present but subdued. Rainbow cloaks trimmed with black ribbons for slain knights in Ironborn raid. Viserys entered on Lewin's arm, pale but upright. Daenerys by side. Murmurs rippled. Stannis stood, crown glinting. "Viserys of House Targaryen, you stand accused of inciting war by unauthorized claim. What say you?" Viserys stiffened, pain flashing. "I claimed birthright stolen. Yet wolves and stags joined to hunt me like dog. My blood spilled, my sister's tears, twice exiled." He faltered. Daenerys squeezed hand. "But I see realm burning. I would end war, not stoke. Grant Dragonstone to my house once more, and I swear fealty." "Nebesim Sikar." Gasps. Renly leaned to whisper in Muss's ear. Tyrell Lord raised brow. Ned stepped forth. "Let this council recognize wisdom over wrath. Dragonstone for loyalty ensures no foreign host sails under dragon banners." Stannis' jaw worked. He owned Dragonstone. To yield seemed surrender. But Davos murmured behind. Stannis' lips thinned. "Very well. Dragonstone and its incomes to House Targaryen, under Crown's feudal oath. Viserys swears sword and fleet to realm." Viserys bowed stiff. Daenerys' eyes glistened. Relief or plotting? Hard to tell. Roose Bolton strode forth, cloak gray as winter rain. "What of traitors seizing my men? Ramsay Snow stands captived unjust." Ned met his gaze cold. "Ramsay ambushed royal heirs. Slew crowns, chartered cell sails, attempted kidnapping. He faces trial." Roose's mouth barely moved. "A bastard's folly, not his father's crime. Release him to me. Bolton justice will serve crown." Edmure Tully boomed. "Bolton justice walks hand in hand with flaying knives. We know its measure." Cheers echoed. Stannis lifted hand. "Ramsay shall stand before Crown's court. If Bolton wishes mercy, let mercy be begged by bastards' deeds." Roose's eyes narrowed, but he bowed. Lightning hatred flickered. That night, assassins crept through Kingspire corridor. Arya spied dark forms scaling parapet, alerted guards. A silent struggle ensued. 2 black wolves, Bolton killers, died under Glover blades. Interrogation at dawn revealed orders. Slay bastard before trial. Ramsay, pinned to sickbed, laughed when told. "Father fears my tongue," he croaked. "Yet I fear none." He asked for harp. Guards refused. Fortnight rolled. Harrenhal became forge of new order. Charters drafted. Levies reassigned. Grain barges rerouted. Ned scarcely slept. Letters flew north, urging Robb to remain vigilant. East, to Vale, coaxing Lysa Arryn to attend next council. Across river, Tywin's health wavered. Some whispered poison, others pneumonia. Kevin negotiated quietly. Lannisters would provision King's Landing in exchange for removal of certain edict of Septon Reynard restricting gold mines. Ned saw necessity, signed. Viserys, arm in sling, took residence in Maegor's Tower, along with sister and handful of sworn swords, formerly loyal to Illyrio Mopatis. Daenerys visited healer tents, winning goodwill among smallfolk who called her Silver Sparrow. Sansa accompanied, learning salves. Arya trained with Syrio on battlements, now boasting bruises like medals. Yet, storm clouds built. Euron Greyjoy's longships prowled coasts, rumored alliance with Myrish sellswords. In the Reach, bandits wearing golden roses waylaid crown wagons, Renley's disavowed men. In King's Landing, rumor spread of pyromancers plotting revenge for sunken jars. 3 guild brothers arrested with stolen serpent's tongue powder. In Council one eve, Varys delivered news. Prince Rhaegar's son Aegon lives. The babe smuggled from sack of King's Landing by Varys himself, raised in secret. Gasps again. Ned reeled. If true, yet another Targaryen heir. Varys bowed. I reveal now to fold him into peace, not war. He sails from Lys under name Young Griff. Shall we welcome or bar? Stannis slammed fist. 7 kingdoms cannot bow to brood of vipers. Renly countered. Better vipers in peace than dragons in war. Ned proposed letter of safe conduct, but council splintered. Tyrells abstained. Lannisters opposed. Decision postponed. That night, lightning split sky. Rain hammered slag heaps of Harrenhal like fists. Ned sought sleep, but found himself pacing the long gallery, where melted stones flowed like ancient wax. Shadows writhed in torchlight, almost alive. He paused before blackened arch, laid palm to cold rock. Thought of Jon at wall, Bran in bedchamber, Robb shoulder armored north. How many sons must answer war their fathers waged? He prayed to old gods for swift end. Footsteps approached, Daenerys, cloak soaked, hair clinging. My brother quarrels with healers. Fever robs sense, she said. He speaks of dragons, of burning this cursed keep. She bit lip. Forgive his words. Wounds and pride conspire. Ned gestured to bench. They sat. Rain thudded roof like war drums. She studied melted wall. My father's madness died here, she whispered. Burn them all. Words I never heard, yet they haunt me. She looked at Ned. If realm can forgive my blood, perhaps I can forgive it too. Ned answered gently. Forgiveness is road, not door. We walk it together or not at all. She smiled faintly. A moment stretched. Then, clatter echoed behind. They rose. Arya burst into gallery, face white. Father! Ramsay's gone. Guards' throats slit. Alarm bells pealed. Ned raced to dungeons. Empty cell. Blood pool. Flayed wolf pelt nailed to door. Rage flared. Barristan organized pursuit. Tracks led east gate. Ropes, grapnels, a stolen horse. Storm snarled overhead. Ned gathered riders before dawn, left command to Davos and Garland. He tore after bastard across sodden fields. Rain drenched, wind whipped. They chased Prince to misty wood, thick pines dripping. Hounds bayed, scent faint. At dusk they closed near abandoned mill. Smoke from chimney. Ned signaled silence, dismounted, crept. Inside, Ramsay crouched over fire, roasting rabbit, cloak of flayed wolf around shoulders. Eyes gleamed feral. Ned stepped in, ice raised. It ends. Ramsay's grin flashed. Beg? Not I. He hurled pot of boiling fat. Ned ducked, felt spray scald ear. Ramsay lunged, twin daggers gleaming. Barristan blocked one strike, riposted. Ramsay rolled, slashed Barristan's thigh. Ned swung. Ramsay parry darted like weasel, nicking Ned's knuckles. Blood slicked grip. Umber Jonas crashed through window, axe overhead. Ramsay sidestepped, Dagger hamstrung Jonas. Boy roared, still swung, axe-clipping bastard's shoulder. Steel bit bone. Ramsay shrieked, stumbled. Ice flashed. Severed dagger hand. Ramsay fell, blood spurting. He writhed, snarling wordless. Ned placed blade at throat. In name of King Stannis, I sentence you. A bastard to fell a bastard, Ramsay hissed. Eyes madness. You think this realm clean? Flay the skin and all men stink of rot. Ned's jaw clenched. He lowered sword. A quicker end than you gave others. He sheathed ice, turned away. Barristan understood. Drove sword through Ramsay's heart. Bastard spasmed, died. Rain hissed through roof holes. Jonas groaned, healers bound wound. Fire guttered low. Ned stared into coals, exhaustion crushing. Boltons would howl, but serpents had severed. At Harrenhal, Roose received word. He read silent, folded parchment. He ordered camp struck by dawn, banners west. To River Run, perhaps new alliance. But Blackfish Tully's outriders had encircled roads. Roose found them barred. He retreated north of Green Fork, rumored rallied at Dreadfort. War not done. Yet council pressed on. Stannis' coronation set for Dragon Pit ruins in King's Landing. Symbol of dragons tamed. Ned returned, gaunt but resolute. Viserys attended on litter, bowed to king. Daenerys wore gown of cobalt silk embroidered with northern deerwolves and Baratheon stags, entwined by dragon's tail, Sansa's design. The sight drew cheers. Ramsay's corpse flayed no one. Ned burned it unsalted, scattering ash. An end to that horror. Winter's breath crept sooner. White ravens flew from citadel, first frost in north. Robb marshaled watchmen prepared hearths. Jon on wall wrote of dead things, stirred beyond frostfangs. Ned read letter under torch by riverside, chill not from wind. He penned reply to Maester Aemon. Watch the skies. The realm unites at last. We send what men we can. In Red Keep's Godswood, Ned met Stannis beneath Hearttree grown sickly in southern clime. Your grace, he began, I have served as hand by fire and steel, but winter calls me home. The wall needs men, my people need lord. Stannis' gaze softened fraction. You are honor the realm cannot spare. He drew blade Lightbringer, fresh forged, not Aezer's myth, and laid it on Ned's shoulder. I name you Warden of the North, Shield of the Dawn. Go fortify. The crown will send grain, gold, ships. Ned bowed, gratified. And I pledge North to realm's defense. Daenerys stepped forward, Viserys behind. She presented small ebony casket. Within, 3 stone eggs mottled green, cream, black and red. Memories of Valyria, she said. May they remind North that fire can warm as well as burn. Ned accepted with caution. I thank you. Ceremony concluded. Bells pealed across city. Small folk cheered king who promised no tournaments, only justice. Tywin watched from balcony. Recovered. Eyes measuring future. Renly departed for Storm's End with bride Marguerite. Smile ahead of schemes. Tyrell grain barges sailed upriver. Banners bright. Ironborn raids faded. Balon calculating. Frey's acquiesced, though Frey smiles remained thin. Ned prepared northward caravan. Sansa to accompany. Arya insisted ride scout. Gendry joined as armorer's apprentice. Barristan remained Kingsguard Lord Commander. Davos sailed to Dragonstone to oversee fort. Daenerys and Viserys boarded Stormcloud, bound for ancestral seat under crown escort. Future uncertain, but tethered to realm. On last night, Ned walked parapet with Varys. Moonlight glimmered. Many threads severed, many bound, the spider said. But loom still clacks. Ned looked to stars. So long as men remember honor, cloth will hold. Let us pray they remember in winter's heart. Varys bowed, departed. Ned turned northward, felt tug of cold wind he had always called home. Below, Blackwater Bay reflected moon silver and wildfire green, long extinguished. He exhaled, mount awaiting. Dawn would see him ride for Winterfell, for Wall, for unknown wars in snow and shadow. Yet hope rode with him. a king sworn to justice, a realm forged anew not by Wildfire's fury, but by quiet resolve of those who chose mercy over vengeance. He touched ice pommel, whispered names of fallen, Jory, Jonos, Ramsay's victims, and swore to guard living. Then he descended steps, his cloak rising like direwolf's breath in the night, and strode toward the stables where his children and future waited, beneath sky bruised but brightening, promising neither peace nor doom, only the chance to carve a path between. The winter-dusted road bent northward through the ruins of the Riverlands, like a half-healed scar, glimmering beneath a sky scraped thin by early frost. Ned Stark rode at the head of the column, his breath pluming into the pale air, the great sword ice boxed in wool and lashed at his saddle flank. Snow had not yet claimed the southern fields, but a chill deeper than simple cold pressed at every fold of his cloak. Beside him trotted Arya on a spirited chestnut she had named Ember, its mane already braided with gray ribbon against ill chance. Sansa followed in a covered wain guarded by 2 Winterfell spearmen, her face half hidden in shadowed hood as she stitched new blue silks for the baby she hoped Daenerys would carry one day. Gendry jogged near the wagon wheels in hammered mail that still smelled faintly of forge and oil, a short smith's hammer at his belt and a longer sword across his back. Behind rolled 50 mounted men of House Glover, 40 of Manderley, and a score of Umber outriders. More than enough, Ned prayed, to fend off what wolves in human skin still prowled these blasted lands. By Stannis writ the king's banners. Black stag crowned upon red, rimmed by flaming heart, led the procession at every village gate. Even so, small folk sometimes mistook the convoy for Lannister or Bolton foragers and fled at its approach. Barn doors banged shut, fields lay untended, and more than once they passed children gaunt with hunger, eyeing the wagon's grain barrels. Ned had ordered 1 cart, set aside for alms. At the hamlet of Sweetbriar he dismounted, spoke plain to each tattered farmer, and gave out fistfuls of grain by his own gloved hand. Later he found several of his captains muttering over dwindling supplies, but no man challenged him. Winterfell's lord had ever stood where steel and mercy met. 4 days north of Harrenhal, they reached the crossroads where the Green Fork split east toward the Twins and west to Seaguard. The inn that had once prospered there lay a burnt husk, but its well still gave sweet water. Ned ordered a halt to rest the horses and to dispatch ravens. Robb's latest letter, delivered that morning, spoke of snow flurries kissing the battlements of Moat Cailin, of White Harbor shipyards hammering hulls for grain barges, and of Barroton mustering riders wary of Bolton treachery. Ned skimmed the page again, thumb lingering on his son's closing line. The men look to Winterfell. The wall looks to us. Ride swift, father. He sealed a reply advising patience and trust in the old alliances, then sent another note south to Stannis, requesting haste in dispatching the promised grain fleets. When the ravens were away, he sought Arya near the well. She practiced forms with needle, the sword whistling through shapes Syrio Forel had drilled into her bones. The chestnut watched, ears flicking. Ned observed until she noticed him and froze mid-thrust. "Your balance has improved," he said. "I still lean too far forward on Cat's Claw," she admitted, cheeks flushing. "Syrio would wrap my shoulder." "Then let the North's wind teach you," he answered, taking the blade gently. He demonstrated the stance, rocking back on the heel before driving forward. She copied, feet crisp against frost-stiff grass. After a dozen passes she grinned wide and asked when she might test steel against real foes. Ned merely smiled, ruffling her snow-flecked hair, and told her a true warrior chooses when not to fight. That dusk, the outriders sighted riders in Bolton colors trailing the main column, always just beyond arrow range. Glover scouts pursued but found only hoofprints vanishing into brush. Ruse's men hunting for news, perhaps, or waiting for chance to strike. Ned doubled the night watches and bade Arya keep close to the fires. She sulked but obeyed. The convoy followed the king's road to Maidenpool's broken gates, skirted the gutted city, and climbed twisting lanes to the Maidenvault Heights, where they made camp in the shell of a burned sept. There, as moonlight spilled through the skeletal ribs of the roof, Maester Lewin approached Ned bearing a letter, inked with a sigil he had not seen in years. A direwolf quartered by a weirwood branch, a private mark Catelyn used for her most secret messages. She wrote from River Run, where she had detoured to tend her dying father. Hoster's fever had cooled at last, yet Catelyn warned of Frey riders thick on the northern roads, and of a rumor that Roose Bolton sought alliance through marriage to Walder Frey's granddaughter. Ned stood long beneath the ruined rafters, hearthlight licking up his face, weighing each word as if they were stones on a scale. By dawn he penned back that he would divert through River Run to collect Catelyn, and then ride for the Neck together. The detour would slow them, but he wanted his lady wife beside him when he faced whatever welcome awaited at Winterfell. Crossing the Tumblestone on a weather-scarred ferry, Ned watched river mist swirl around the hooves of his destrier. River Run rose beyond the waters like a memory made stone. The red walls grayed by winter's early breath, banners drooping still from towers, and a pale moon cresting behind twin keeps. Lord Edmure met them in the outer yard, cheeks raw pink from dawn's chill, eyes red from endless vigil. He clasped Ned's forearm fiercely. "My uncle says death lingers because father's heart clings to story's final line. I think he lives now only to see winter break. He speaks little and dreams often." Ned squeezed his friend's shoulder and asked for Catelyn. She waited in her father's high chamber. He found her seated by a shuttered window, auburn hair streaked silver, features drawn yet resolute. They shared no words at first, only the press of hand to hand, the soft ache of reunion. The room smelled of mint tea and damp linen. Hoster Tully lay upon the great feather bed, breaths shallow, eyes closed. A fur bundle of kitten purred at his throat. Catelyn whispered that the creature soothed him. Ned knelt by the bedside, told the old lord that peace dawned at last, that a Tully's honor had helped forge it. Hoster murmured something. Ned thought he heard. Oaths kept. Then slipped again into sleep. That night River Run feasted the northern company on river trout baked in clay. But laughter dimmed early as icicles clicked along the eaves. Blackfish Brynden sat with Ned in the hall's quiet after, pouring rough red into tin cups. "Roose has scouts on every road to the Neck," he warned. "He sits at the Twins now, if word can be trusted, haggling marriage terms for 1,000 reinforcements. Black Freys sniff power like dogs at a corpse. Robb will hold Moat Cailin," Ned answered. "If Bolton means to break faith, he'll have to carve through stone and bog, and the lion's share of the north first." "Bolton has patience," Brynden mused. "But these Frey unions give him bridges. Guard them." They spoke until torches burned low, trading tidings of Ironborn raids along the stony shore, of Aegon Targaryen's rumored landing on the Stormlands coast, of Stannis' edicts levying taxes on unrepaired castles. Eventually Ned begged bed, mind buzzing. At dawn, thunderheads bruised the western horizon. Catelyn rode beside Ned as the host filed from River Run with fresh bread and cheese, stuffed in saddlebags. She carried news that Robb's council at Winterfell now included Roderick Castle, Galbart Glover, and young Lyanna Mormont, fierce as a winter lynx in every dispatch. Catelyn worried for Bran, still bound to chair though his wit brightened, and Rickon, wild and near feral since old Nan's passing. Ned promised they would all see home together come first snow. They crossed the Red Fork by fording stones while trout silvered beneath eddies. 6 leagues on they found the charred skeleton of a Bolton supply camp, broken wagons, gutted tents, flayed skins hanging like grim flags. No bodies. Gendry muttered that skinning your own dead spoke of sickness deeper than war. Ned ordered torches brought, every grisly trophy burned, and a cairn raised of fieldstones. When the last hide collapsed in ash, he looked at Arya and Sansa, and saw fresh grief ripple across both faces. Later, he told them some men wore darkness like armor. Sunlight must banish such gloom each dawn, it found their courage. By Clearwater Fields they overtook a ragged column of Frey foot trudging north, spears rust-dotted, Captain sullen. Their sergeant bowed stiffly, yet would not yield reason for their march. Ned allowed them passage with 3 Winterfell scouts watching. That night, the Freys vanished into pine shadow. though their tracks showed sudden turn west toward the mountains. The Blackfish's warning rang louder. 2 dawns later, Moat Cailin loomed, a labyrinth of black basalt towers slouching in fog, causeways snaking across pale fens where cold water bubbled through moss like ghosts' sighs. Robb Stark waited beyond the south gatehouse, astride a lanky gray loaned from Galbart. His beard had thickened, giving him the look of a man grown. Yet when he saw his father he swung down, eyes bright with boyish relief. They embraced hard. Robb greeted his sisters, knuckled Arya's head, kissed Sansa's brow, took Gendry's measure with a friendly clap. Then he guided them into the mazy ramparts, where northern flags whipped. They supped in the old watchtower atop salt pork stew and marsh crane, sharing tales until candles guttered. That night Ned and Robb talked alone on parapet, while will-o'-wisps flickered across the bogs. Robb admitted fears of Bolton uprising. Ravens from Dreadfort remained unanswered, and travelers spoke of new mint silver stags stamped with a flayed man. Ned counseled readiness but not haste. The North must stand united until the Wall's need was met. He ordered Glover scouts doubled, and ravens dispatched to the Cerwyns, Karstarks, and Mormonts. Muster but hold until Winterfell called. At dawn, horns sounded from the western causeway. 6 riders bearing a white banner quartered red and pink. Ned descended with Robb to parley ground. Ahead cantered Roose Bolton himself, cloaked in winter veldt trimmed with weasel fur, expression stone smooth. Behind him rode a maester, 2 silent guards, and an armored woman Ned guessed was Lady Alice Karstark, rumored to have wed Bolton in quiet ceremony days earlier. Her eyes burned with uneasy fire. "Lord Stark," Roose addressed, dipping head, "I come to renew my liege oath, and to return my wayward son's sword." He produced a blood-dried dirk and cloth. "A regrettable tragedy," Ramsay strayed from honor. "I disown his crimes and lay them bare for judgment." Ned accepted the wrapped blade, hearing the hiss of Robb's breath behind. "Regret alone will not heal the flayed," he answered. "You aided their reign of terror with silence." Roose's pale lips curved almost sadness. "A lord is father to many. Too late I saw the rot." He opened gauntleted hand. "Allow House Bolton to prove loyalty. My levies stand ready to march east against Ironborn raiders. I place them under Winterfell's banner." "Not sent our way, how?" Robb's knuckles whitened on sword belt. Ned gestured calm. "I will consider. First you shall accompany us to Winterfell. There we will consult with Manderleys and Umbers on the Wall's needs. Then we shall speak of oaths." Roose's eyes flickered, a pulse of calculation, but he bowed. "Ace Winterfell commands." The caravan resumed, now swelling with Bolton riders, grim-eyed men whispering of murdered bastard, but wary under watch of Glover's spears. North of the next snow fell proper, thick wet flakes that clung to cloaks and muffled hoofbeats. The children of the forest seemed to breathe from moss-shrouded faces of weirwood stumps, watching the host creep north as twin weasels of trust and treachery wrestled in every heart. Winterfell's towers emerged one afternoon through a swirl of slate clouds, banners snapping on frosted battlements. The snarling gray direwolf above snowy parapets, bronze bells pealing greeting. Smoke curled from chimneys, the scent of spruce wood drifting sweet across the snowy field. Stable grooms ran forward as Ned crossed beneath the portcullis. Bran waited just beyond in specially crafted wicker chair mounted atop a shaggy garron. The boy's eyes, greener now, older, lit like twin hearths. Rickon barreled down the steps with shaggy dog at heels, howling joy. Catelyn cried openly, clutching Maester Luwin's sleeve as she climbed down. Servants brought mulled ale, roasted venison, loaves dripping butter. That night, a feast filled the great hall bright with rushlights and laughter. The journey's dust washed away in mead. Arya challenged every guard to knife-throwing contests. Sansa danced to fife and drum with Sir Donald Manderley. Gendry found his way to the smithy where Mikken had left forge and anvil for him to admire. Outside, direwolves padded along the curtain wall, howling to the half-moon. In council, the next dawn Ned convened northern lords. Roose sat silent, Lady Alice at his side. Wyman Manderley, broad as portcullis, argued for building galleys to support Night's Watch. Meg Mormont sent niece Lyra, who demanded more dragonglass from the south. Ned spread Joan's letter across the table. An account of whites sighted near the fist of the first men, of Benjen Stark still missing. The room hushed. Even Roos's eyes showed a chill deeper than stone. Ned decreed that 500 men would ride to the wall bearing obsidian blades, axes, barrels of lamp oil, and wagons of grain. Lords Serwyn and Tallheart volunteered men, Bolton too, but Ned thanked and declined. Trust must be grown, not forced. Next he tasked Manderley with shipping grain from White Harbor before White Knife iced over. Glover would rebuild fallen watchtowers along the King's Road. Umber roared approval, smashing fist to table until cups danced. Later in Godswood, Ned knelt beneath the ancient heart tree, red leaves piled around roots like shedskins. Bran waited quietly in chair, eyes half closed. "I dreamed you walked here before you arrived," the boy said, voice distant. "Leaf said to tell you. The cold winds rise and the dance of snows begins." Ned brushed thinning hair from Bran's brow. "Leaf? The child of the forest who watches beyond the Weirwood Gate," Bran whispered. "She says the wall has cracks like old ice, and the shadows slipping through are hunger cold." Ned's blood prickled. He had heard similar visions from old Nan once, half drugged by summer wine. He squeezed Bran's hand and promised father and son would ride to the gatehouse, come spring, and see the wall strong. Bran only stared at bleeding carved face, lips moving with unheard language. Snow piled high before the new year. Work crews raised palisades around Winterfell's farms. Miners dug new shafts for iron to supply spear forges. Ravens flew daily to Castle Black. 300 men, with Manderley grain set to leave as soon as roads hardened. Among them, Sansa insisted she ride, eager to see south side of the world she'd read in songs. Ned refused softly. She would govern Wintertown's orphan hospice instead. Arya would accompany the escort north, though. Her heart demanded the chance to stand upon the wall beside Jon. Catelyn objected until Ned reminded her that Stark blood belonged where snows fell hardest. The evening before the escort marched, a messenger burst through the great hall doors. A Frey rider half frozen, bearing parchment stamped with pink wax shaped like flayed man. Ned read quickly. An ultimatum from Roose Bolton. Release Dreadfort levies or face march of 10,000 across White Knife. The message reeked of desperation, signed in crimson flourish. He handed it to Robb, who shook head in grim disbelief. That night Ned summoned Roose privately to Hunter's Hall. Candles sputtered in the draft. Outside wolves howled. Roose entered alone, pale as snowfall. Gloves spotless. "You wished audience." Ned held the letter over Brazier. "Explain this." Roose's brow furrowed only slightly. "My Castellans sent word in zeal. Sons of local barons thirst for renown." "Do not lie," Ned said. "You test our walls." Roose's gaze slid across flickering shadows. "The North must show strength, lest Stannis treat us as mere bannermen. Strength wins favor." "Strength without loyalty is rot," Ned countered. "Call off your levies. Kneel before Hearttree tomorrow. Swear again. Fail, and I will banish House Bolton to lands no wider than a grave." "B." For a heartbeat Roose's mask cracked. Hatred like a blade flash. But it was gone. "Very well," he murmured. "Winterfell remains the hearth. We will kneel." The next dawn before entire court, Roose did kneel beneath bared steel and Hearttree's bloody limbs. Some said his lips formed other words than those he spoke, but wind and ravens carried no secrets that morn. Still, Ned doubled the watch on Dreadfort men. In deep midwinter, the escort trudged north. Ned rode with them to Queenscrown, then embraced Arya and Gendry at parting. 50 rangers of Deepwood formed their guard, plus 10 of Roose's silent men. Ned insisted join to prove devotion. Snow turned dirt roads to silent whiteness. Their torches vanished into it. Upon return, Ned threw himself into building new granary vaults below the castle. With Maester Luwin advising fermentation stores and Manderley engineers designing river locks for next thaw. Bran studied ravenry under Luwin. Rickon trained pups for sled duty. Sansa planted winter roses in glass gardens, letters to Daenerys about herbal midwifery. Life resumed pattern, but always the looming sense of far drums persisted. Tyrell intrigues, Greyjoy raids, Aegon's rumored advance from Storm's End. Stannis struggled to collect taxes from recalcitrant lords. One frigid dawn Ned stood upon Widow's Tower, breath white against sky as hard and blue as tempered steel. Far to the west, violet clouds brewed. He heard steps. Catelyn joined, wrapping furs. They watched snowflakes begin to fall, lazy at first, but soon thick. "The true winter," she whispered. Ned nodded. His dreams since childhood surfaced, of endless white hush burying worlds. Trumpets blasted from outer yard. A weary outrider reached gate, collapsed clinging to saddle. Guards bore him in. Ned and Catelyn descended. The man rasped through cracked lips. "The wall. It burns blue. The dead walk by light of shattered moon. Benjen Stark returns at their head." He thrust blood-spattered parchment. Ned caught it, eyes racing. A desperate plea from Jon. The watch overrun at Eastwatch, wildlings fleeing south. Ice spiders glimpsed in storm. A hush chilled the yard deeper than the weather. Ned raised voice. "Rally every rider. Send ravens to White Harbor, to Deepwood, to Bear Island. The North marches. Winter is here." Sansa's face went pale. Bran's eyes slid distant, as if dreamed on some inner weirnet. Robb gripped sword hilt. Roose Bolton watched from yard's edge, expression unreadable. Snow roared harder, wind keening like mourners. Yet in Ned Stark's chest burned steady fire. Older than wildfire, older than dragons. The forged heat of duty and love and the unbending promise made long ago in God's wood shade, that he would protect the realm of men while breath remained. He looked west where storm clouds massed, then north where the unseen wall waited, and he felt neither hesitancy nor doubt, only the familiar calm of a man who has drawn ice and placed foot upon ancient stone. Behind him Winterfell's banners cracked, gray wolves leaping beneath first heavy snowfall. Ahead, the gathering dark awaited. Cold, relentless, yet not unconquerable, for men still lived who would stand, swords in hand, lanterns held high, to set against the night their own fierce and stubborn light.